Bienvenidos, nerds. What's up? It's Austin Yorsky here. I hope you really enjoyed the last dry arc. It was a lot of fun. I can't believe we recruited Commander Commodore Cassidy to our side. I didn't even know that was going to be possible. I got General Reso's badge. That's going to be pretty interesting going forward. I'm really happy with how Killings is turning out. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do her justice in the time we have left, but I think she has a lot of interesting stuff going on. So that's been pretty cool. I'm excited for you to hear the next wet arc. If you'll recall, Lillian sent the Storm Giant White after the Riddlefish. So they're going to have to deal with that. It's a pretty good arc, but that's not what you're listening to now. As you can see probably from your MP3 player or wherever you found this episode, this is an unlocked episode of Spew Punk, the bonus show that I do with Quinn over on patreon.com/Austin Yorsky. This is actually like my favorite episode I think we've done of Spew Punk, which now has 140 hours of audio or something ridiculous like that. Spew Punk is a show where Quinn and I just like talk about whatever's going on. We review movies, we read books, stuff like that. It's fun. It's like just a comedy show that this is a little taste of. But the reason that I'm unlocking this episode is because I wanted to have a normal Sunday upload because I have a 10-year streak of a new upload every Sunday, and I didn't want to ruin that. So it's also just like a little taste. So if you've never listened to Spew Punk before, you can see what it's about because I have a new episode of Spew Punk that's going up. That's kind of a sequel to this episode. But this isn't intentional, but both episodes are recorded right after I visited Quinn in Pennsylvania. So there's like some fun echoes and references between those two episodes. And you can get every episode of Spew Punk for just $1, patreon.com/Austin Yorsky. So that's what's happening is I'm uploading a new Spew Punk and unlocking this old one that we referenced for everyone to listen to. But yeah, long story short is I was in Pennsylvania, so I lost a couple days of editing, and then there was a big Audacity update. Audacity is the program I use to edit the podcast, obviously. And it completely like fucked all my settings, and I'm just not happy with where I am in the edit right now, and I don't want to upload an episode that I'm not proud of. So it's still coming. We're going to go back to normally scheduled episodes. It's just this is a perfect spot in between two big arcs, and we had these really funny Spew Punks and just timely stuff. The big new Deadpool movie that came out. We talk about that a lot, stuff like that. So I hope that's okay with everyone. Our audience is always very supportive. They're always saying, "Yeah, take time off, Austin. It's fine. We don't care. We have a backlog. I'm like 3 weeks behind. It's fine." So I hope no one minds too much. But just had some family stuff come up and just the episode isn't ready. So I love you very much. Thank you for listening to the show. Check us out in the Discord where you can talk to us. Is that everything? I mean, there's Crew Gunk. There's that other show that's in the main feed as well. Patreon.com/Austin Yorsky for all of that. Oh, I've said this before, but in case you don't know, $10 is to get into Crew Gunk as a supporting credited member, and then starting next season, I'm going to start using people, I think it's the $50 and up level for NPC names. That's the plan. With the 10th anniversary of the show, can you hear I'm like, I haven't taken a breath in like 3 minutes. Wowzers, bowsers. Anyway, this season of Dice Funk is pretty awesome. Coming to a big climax with White the Storm Giant and everything. It's going to be good. And I'm done talking. This is a great episode. You're going to hear us talk about Founders Day, an obscure movie no one has ever heard of that Quinn and I absolutely fucking lost our minds at. It's so fucking funny. And then you should catch up on the kind of sequel episode of Spew Punk, which is going to go up around the same time, where we talk about Long Legs and Hundreds of Beavers, two other movies you should not miss. So just a ton of content, like 5 hours of us talking about stuff. So I hope that's okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Austin Yorsky out. Have a good week. I love you. Quinn, I'm going to need to insist that you treat me with more respect going forward.
Why is that?
Because I am a different person now. I'm a member of the elite, and you're still treating me like I'm a peasant.
I don't... Wait, how did you... Are you rich now?
Not quite, but you know how in the famous H.G. Wells novel, The Time Machine, he goes into the future and discovers that society has been split between the Morlocks and the Eeyore, like basically two different species of human, the betters and like the subhumans. I've spent 33 years as a Morlock. But as of today, I am an Eeyore, and you need to start respecting that, and you need to treat me as such.
I mean, of course, sir. I always treat my Eeyores with respect, my Eeyores. But why the sudden change to aristocracy?
I'm surprised you got on board. I was expecting more pushback.
As we've alluded to, I live to be submissive of a kind. So if someone's immediately like, treat me as your better, I'm like, apps, I salute, and then immediately get on my knees.
This has really been more of an element of the show than I thought. This is really a main plot line. I thought it might be like a recurring B plot, but it's really the kind of the thrust of the thing.
It's my character arc. We're gonna see where it goes. But you know, for now, I mean, it's definitely it has the momentum, certainly.
I believe the term is Flanderization, when a character becomes more and more defined by one trait. It used to be just a little thing about Quinn. Now you are moving from room to room on your knees.
Oh, I wish. If only I could. Damn, I don't have... I wish I had gotten into this in my 20s when I still had, like, a young person's knees. Now, I mean, it's brutal. I'm going to do it, but it's going to hurt.
Creaking and popping as you try to fulfill this fantasy in your head, and everything hurts.
Yeah, I'm just shuffling from room to room, like, ow, 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 how may I help you? Ow, ow, ow. So wait, why are you suddenly an elite?
Yeah, I have to make this announcement. I realize it's going to make me a lot less relatable to our audience who has more of a working class background, or more, let's call them the salt of the earth people. And maybe they won't understand where I'm coming from anymore because our paths are diverging now. But after 33 years, I do have a legal, valid driver's license.
Wow, look at you. That's incredible. Congratulations, first and foremost. I feel like the way you initiated this was for me to belittle you for getting your driver's license in your 30s, but that's not the vibe. I legitimately, congratulations. Like, I don't think we should prescribe ourselves entirely to the notion that you have to get your driver's license at a certain point, particularly if it doesn't appeal to you. I didn't get my driver's license until I was 25.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it honestly isn't that big of a deal one way or the other. I
was going to say, first and foremost, you've been driving since I've known you, which has definitely been sooner than today. So, yeah, you've just been a bad boy, Murloc, for most of this.
Yeah, they call me the bad boy of driving because I was definitely doing that. But yeah, I just never mattered that much. I just assumed I was never going to be able to afford a car in my entire life. I still can't really. Oh my God. But I reached a point where, because I pay all my bills on time, my credit score is such that I was able to indenture myself for the next 10 years or whatever.
Oh my God.
So I do have a car, and I did take the test this morning, and I passed. So
congratulations. Was the test stressful at all, or were you just, I mean, you've been driving for most of your life, so I can't imagine it was.
Yeah, I have been driving since I was like 14, because my dad would be like, oh, I need you to go pick up cigarettes or whatever. And I'm like, I'm a child. He's like, I don't give a shit. Fuck you.
You're like, but who's going to stop Lady Unalaska? He's like, cigarettes now.
Oh my God, I didn't realize. I was doing a Titus J thing there. That's how you pronounce that? Did they say his name out loud?
I mean, I believe it's Titus, and then they've since said they're like, actually, it's Titus. So I think it was just a translation, miscommunication, a localization. But Titus sounds better than Titus, I'll be honest.
All right, yeah, I actually meant Ject because I've definitely heard Titus out loud in the Kingdom Hearts games or something. But or was it? No, it was Final Fantasy Dissidia? Was that the fighting game? Oh my God, none of this matters.
Yeah.
When I was like 16, I took the test, which with no driving experience because I couldn't afford a car, obviously. I had to borrow my cousin's car. Not actually my cousin. She's just a family friend. We call her our cousin. And it was so tiny. I'm 6'4", and it was like a fucking Volkswagen Beetle or some shit. I fucking couldn't get my fucking knees in there, and I bumped a cone. So I did fail the test when I was like 16.
Oh no.
And I just didn't ever get access to a car again. And eventually I was just like, it doesn't fucking matter. I barely drive. And when I do, I'm very safe. It's fine. But like I said, Joe and I did acquire a car recently. And so I was like, I should just take the test. It's also much easier here in the swamp of Florida. Like where I was in Naples, there was cones and you had to do a whole thing. You had to go on the highway. It was like a big deal. Here, they literally just in the parking lot of the tax collector's office, they're like, stop at these 3 stop signs.
Oh my God. I was going to ask, did they have you parallel park?
No, they had me do a K-turn, but it was like on a closed course. There was no like pressure or anything. It wasn't like parallel parking in Philadelphia in the middle of Broad Street, which I've done.
Yeah. I don't know how you do. The mere thought of that fills me with so much anxiety. I kind of want to vomit right now.
I mean, it was bad for other reasons. Our car did get broken into, so there's but the parking itself, as stressful as it was, did go fine. Anyway, so after 33 of God's own Christian years, I am now legally allowed to drive my own vehicle, which I will probably do rarely. But I can now do that, I guess, and no one can stop me. I guess they could still stop me. Probably there's other methods if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, I'm saying congratulations a lot, but really, you've known how to drive for years now. The only thing you've done is decide to acquiesce to the man and say that I am following your rules to legally do so. So if anything, you've actually become less cool by getting your driver's license. You are a nerd Eeyore. So I want you to acknowledge that as part of your new level. You have become less cool. You were a bad boy Murloc before. Now you're a nerdy lore.
It's like when they made weed legal, and I was like, I don't care anymore.
You're like, fuck this.
Yeah, it just instantly lost all appeal. I mean, I never really liked it that much, but when it was illegal, it felt cool. And now it's just like,
oh my God,
it's just like getting a fucking Big Mac. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter.
When they made Big Macs legal, you also lost interest in those. You're like, this used to mean something.
Yeah, I might go to McDonald's if they outlawed it. If I had to get like fucking black market nuggets or something, and the Grimace shake, but I had to go down a dark hallway and pass a bill under a door.
Yeah, you find a guy, he opens a code, he's like, which McFlurry do you want?
I'm just the one that gets you fucked up. Come on.
Oreo it is.
That's the one. This is going to be a jam-packed episode. I literally got off a plane yesterday. For those who've been following the C plot now, because the BDSM one has moved up in prominence. I've been going back and forth, Pennsylvania to Florida. I've taken more planes since the pandemic than all the years before combined. Sometimes for like my dad's health when he had the congestive heart failure. Sometimes for Joe's family when her dad was in a car accident. Sometimes just to visit. My sister had a baby, stuff like that. If you're wondering, Austin, how are you affording that? I heard you say on episode 0 you can't afford groceries. There's actually this thing we did in October with Frontier Airlines. Not an endorsement. Who gives a shit? Just letting you know. There's a thing where you pay like slightly more than one flight and you can fly as much as you want for like half a year. It's a bananas deal. I don't know how they let us get away with it. And I think the only reason it's working is because no one flies in and out of Harrisburg, so there's like space on those planes.
You should note is that one of the conditions is you can only book your ticket within 24 hours of the flight.
Absolutely, it's only.
So this is not like a free ticket to fly anywhere, like first class thing. It's like if there are seats essentially in this flight, they're gonna be like, well, you paid a little extra, so you can just get on this for free.
Yeah, it's like in the rare event that a flight isn't sold out, you can sneak on. But like I said, if you're leaving central Pennsylvania, you'll probably just go to the Philadelphia airport, the normal one that regular people use. Harrisburg, despite being the capital, is such a cute mom and pop airport. It's like the local bodega. There's only like 4 gates. One of them only goes to Alaska. I really think of it as my personal airport. When I go in there, they dap me up. They don't even make me take off my belt. They're like, whatever, just who gives a shit? Just get in here.
Yeah, I love that they don't give a shit attitude. But it has such strange connection points. I love that there is a gate just for Alaska, as though that's like a major hub of transportation. Like we're like, we got to get all this Amish butter over to Alaska. Like, why is that one of like the 3 locations? But it's I don't know. It's kind of snazzy.
Yeah, from what I can tell, there's like only a couple gates. One seems to be permanently Alaska, and another one seems to be only Florida. It's like it goes to Orlando, St. Petersburg, and like Tampa, I think, are the ones it like cycles between. I don't know the economics of this, but the Harrisburg Airport is a very funny low rent operation. We didn't eat, so we stopped at Auntie Anne's Pretzels in the airport, and there was like one guy there, and he was just simply not interested in performing his duties, which I was like, respect, brother. But yeah, Joe was like, oh, can we get the pretzel dog? And he's like, we don't have that. And he's like, what do you have? And he just pointed at the case. There was like one pretzel in there. He's like, that's what there is. He's like, she's like, can you make anything else? And he's like, I don't know how.
Oh, wow. We've been there though. I mean, who hasn't just been at a point where you're like, I don't know. I have no idea. They needed a warm body to fill this location. That was all I can offer.
Yeah, he's like, I'm literally just here so you don't Jimmy open the cash register. He was simply on his phone the entire time, which I mean, like I said, I don't hold anything against him. It's a multi-billion-dollar, national, probably multinational corporation. Fuck him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry you didn't get an A-class experience at the Harrisburg Airport. Your tummies must have been so hungry getting back to Florida.
Nah, that's fine. It's a pretty fine experience for me. Obviously, I don't have my huge legs, so it's a little cramped, but we made it work, and I am now back in Florida after visiting you. Did I say that? Maybe I buried the lead. You and I have seen each other in person recently again.
Yeah, we've seen each other. We felt each other's spirits. Our minds connected. We did all sorts of things.
Yeah, we were kind of a Morlock and Eeyore situation because at the time I didn't have my driver's license, so we were tearing up the town, and people were like, "Are those the characters from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, the timeless classic?" And
I was like, "Yes, I am the Murloc." Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that is the reference, in case anyone's curious. So, of those fish people from Warcraft, I believe.
Oh, I had no idea that's supposed to be a reference. I was just like, Quinn, you forgot what both words are, but you know other words, so just say those.
Yeah, they're mer, like, water, and they're Morlocks, which are like, subhuman, like monster people. So yeah, they're Murlocs. That's the joke. We're off to a great start. Do you want to talk about what we did while I was in Pennsylvania? Because we had what Borat might call great success.
Yeah, so the main reason that Joe and Austin returned to Harrisburg, beyond the fact that we're like good friends and we want to stay connected with one another, is we always were doing the pre-releases together, and you guys were like, we should still do that. We'll keep flying up for pre-releases at Fuzzy Wall. So the Magic the Gathering Murders at Karlov Manor pre-release was going to happen. So we went and did that, and we'll talk about these things in more detail. But we did that. Then we spent a day basically just watching movies. I made you guys one of my manga-themed burgers that I've been trying out. And we watched some cartoons, and then started watching somewhat horny anime.
You're really underselling it. 2 of those things were softcore pornography.
I don't. Hold on a moment. First and foremost, so Kakegurui, I think is the name of the anime. I may be misremembering it, but I thought this was going to be way hornier than it was. Perhaps I have been jaded. I am a child who grew up in sort of like the late 2000s of anime. So like there was anime I watched that was just straight up softcore pornography. To be very clear, I watched Najika, okay? That was an anime that billed itself as like guns, gals, and panty shots, like that kind of thing. This is like a little horny. This is like, you can be a little extra as a treat. It's more so about being an insane person. And that is also something we should, push forward and allow. We should really let these high schoolers go into their complete psycho gambler phase. Let them go into their villain era.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not honestly that scandalized. I've seen much worse, but Kakegurui, the thing you're talking about, does feature a scene where someone masturbates with a gun to their head. So it's not like it's not like family fare. I'm not busting this out when I go to see, my sister and her 2-year-old, so we can all watch it together.
Sure, they're not going to make an anime live action Netflix adaptation of this. I understand that, but like, that's why I said slightly horny. I just want to be clear. I've watched so much worse that this was almost like I was a little almost Puritan in my moment. I was like, oh, I could watch this on a Sunday. I could watch this on the Lord's Day. This is fine.
Oh, there is a live action adaptation apparently.
I'm sure there is. But I'm talking like One Piece, giant multi-marketing kind of thing. I guess I can't speak too much to that show because we didn't finish it. I may end up finishing it with Joa. It sounds as though that offer was placed to you and you're immediately like, how about anything else?
I mean, yeah, we can talk about this briefly. I think it's a relatively well-known show. It was really successful when it came out on Netflix. And it's a high school where everyone is obsessed with gambling and they get really horny doing it. I think it's perfectly harmless fun. It's like very silly. It's like something you would, show someone and be like, can you believe they're doing this? Like, I don't think it's good, but I don't have a problem watching it with people because I like hanging out with my friends. So I will probably see more of it, but it's also, we're going to talk about this later. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean I'm not going to see it. If anything, it makes it more interesting because it's like, why do they do this? Why is that piss or is that cum? What is happening?
That was a very important question at one point. Liquid started dropping from a person. I'm like, I think she might be peeing herself or she's drooling. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a live action film and a live action TV series. My lord, people love this series.
Yeah, everyone's. I know there's a sequel as well, so everybody's all about getting Kakegurui or whatever. I will say that I enjoy part of it. As I mentioned to you guys as I was watching, I was like, this is the second horniest gambling-themed series I've seen. The first being Gamblefish, a series I have alluded to or talked about very, very early on a Weekly Manga Recap, probably like over a decade ago, and haven't really felt the need to mention it since. But if I recall, that one was straight up like, oh, my clothes have all exploded off. Kind of horny. Also, main character guy that changes a lot of the tone of things. But I was able to just enjoy it. I had good fun with the house pet system. A system in which if you are taking on too much debt in this school, you become less than human and are treated like an animal and used like furniture. And I was like, if I go to this school, I'm immediately losing the first giant bet I can to get into this system.
That's what I'm saying. When I said it's a softcore pornography, I was like, come on, this is obviously, and it's fine, whatever, make things for people, everyone has interest, it's all good, I'm not being judgmental. No. But like, yeah, the show starts with them being like, this is a school where everyone gambles, your social status is determined by how much debt you have or like how much money you have, and if you lose, you become essentially human furniture. Like, it's like, I actually I was gonna say, like, I'm sure I've seen porn like this. I actually haven't because it's not my thing, but it's definitely it's fetish material because you're someone's pet. It's pet play. It just is, and that's it's fine.
I will be very clear. I do not think this is a fetish anime. I don't think it actually delves too much into that stuff to really satisfy. Like, if that's what you were looking for, then
okay, you're like, Austin, you don't understand. It doesn't have it is missing critical elements.
I'm just saying, if you were sitting there, how do I not say this in a vulgar manner? I'm just saying, if you're sitting there, one hand occupied, and you were just sitting there being like, all right, stop fucking talking about concentration and start getting into the woof woof bark bark, you're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna be waiting a long time. It's gonna be you're edging yourself essentially, because far more it's about just these weirdos, these strange little people who occupy this school who are just complete nutballs.
Yeah, I mean, the thing it reminds me of, because I listened to your show, Weekly Manga Recap, is the series that every week there's a different fetish. Fucking hell. They put a bomb in someone's butt.
Eden Zero. So no, Eden Zero is more fetish material because it's so much more on Front Street with it. And it's so frequent how much it falls into that lane that you're like, okay, this is their kink or something like this. This is something Hiro has, the author has like an explicit interest in, or he knows his audience has an interest in it and it's to market to them or something like that. Cause it's so universally unconnected to the plot. He added an element. He's like, in this world, there are people with magic powers and they have, wide range of different abilities. But of course, there's one weakness all of these users have. If you tie them up, they can't do anything. They can't use any of their powers and they're helpless. You're like, all right, come on, dog.
I don't believe the author of Eden Zero has ever had sex. I'm not sure he knows what it is. I think it's literally just like a marketing thing where he's like, okay, so feet is trending today on the tube site, so let's do a feet chapter. Whatever, get the bag, I guess. But
I only really even brought up the house pet thing because we had a prolonged discussion about how I essentially start destroying the economy of this world by just getting myself deeper and deeper into the system so I can get more and more disrespected. And then eventually I have all the debt and I just die one day. And they're like, well, shit, that's not good. Our economy's fucked.
Yeah, because the whole show is based on the premise that people don't want to be house pets. They don't want to be submissive. And if
weirdos, these insane people.
And if you were isekai'd into that world, you would completely ruin the economy. As people would have to run away from you to avoid you taking on more debt.
Losing my bets would erase my debt. Essentially, I'd be like, no, I'm a normal fucking person again. God damn it.
Yeah, you'd be such a fucking outlier. You would be an anomaly. They'd be scared of you. It'd be like an urban myth.
Yeah. The girl with the eye patch and the gun, she'd be terrified of me. She'd be like, this horny bitch. She just keeps losing more and more on purpose. The game was concentration. She kept flipping over the same two cards every turn.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The show is just very silly. It's essentially a comedy. There are ostensibly high stakes. There are people who are having their lives ruined, and like I said, there's guns and some pretty dark stuff that gets brought up, but it's always subverted in the most cartoonishly over the top way. I think it's fine. I enjoyed it well enough. I'm not willing to die on the hill that it's good or anything. I just think it's funny. So
it was entertaining to watch. As I said, I might continue to watch it. But I think it's fine. I've been curious about it because I know a couple people on my Discord are fans of it. So it was mostly just the thing to check out. I'm not sure if the manga is officially licensed here or not. I know at one point in time I tried to look for it and I wasn't sure what I was getting. So
it seems like it would be hard to translate. There's so much so many rules and stuff. It reminds me of Cipher Academy, which is a manga that's ending right now, which the translator quit because he's like, this whole thing is wordplay based. What do you want from me?
Yeah, they do it though. They've translated, Yu-Gi-Oh! And other series that are specifically I'm trying to think of the word, pun based and stuff like that. They suck. They're intensely obnoxious to translate, but it does happen, especially if the series is popular, which I think this series falls into the realm of. But I'm not sure. It oftentimes comes down to rights, who gets it, and if there's an interest at the time worth the amount of effort that would go into translating all of this.
Yeah, I'm looking here. Publication March 22nd, 2014 until present. So congratulations, 10-year anniversary coming up for Kakegurui. Wow, really still jacking it to cards all these years later.
Yeah, it looks like maybe it's available through Crunchyroll? ? So yeah, regardless, we're talking so much about the series that honestly, I feel like we ran through the content of very quickly. It's a horny manga gambling anime series. The other thing we watched that I think you have more thoughts, we should say, on is Hasbin Hotel, which I watched prior to you guys getting here. Literally the last two episodes came out the day you guys flew in, so I watched those and then put down my controller, put on my shoes, and I was like, time to go pick up my friends. So I watched it and then basically rewatched the whole series again because I knew this would be a series that I was like, I think Joel will dig this. What I did not know is how much Austin would not necessarily enjoy it.
Yeah, I have somewhat nuanced thoughts on this. I will say that
Is it nuanced to say that you're like main critique? You're like, this is just the good place over again.
See, I get misconstrued in that when I say one thing is like another thing, as if that's like an overriding concern. It's fine when two things are similar. That's not the crux of my critique. Do people know about this? I've seen just now that it was the largest global debut for a new animated series on Prime, so apparently pretty popular. This show, as you mentioned, Hasbin Hotel, apparently also in the same universe as another show. This is like a whole fandom. There's like a whole lore to this I'm not aware of.
I know of this thing, and I think I saw someone recommend it again. Hell of a Boss or Haluva Boss. I assume Hell of a Boss, but there's like an art style that was also very like hellish and demonic. I could not tell you the plot of that thing if you put a gun to my head, but this is the same creator, Vivienne Medrano, and it got, it had a pilot put online. It's a musical, got picked up by Amazon. The cast then got changed, and now it's all pretty like big name people: Keith David, Stephanie Beatriz, Erica Henningsen. Like this is, these are pretty big voice actors or singers, to go along with the extra money that are going into it now. And now it has 8 episodes that are available on Amazon Prime, with I believe a second season in production at this point.
So I think if you looked at this thing on paper, both these series created by Vivian, Hell of a Boss, the premise of that is it's about an assassination company that's in hell, and then the prequel spinoff, Hasbin Hotel, is about a hotel in hell. Both of these things, I think on paper, you'd be like, this is Austin core. This is everything Austin likes, like religion, mythology, angels and demons, horror, but also comedy, vulgarity, talking about butts and boners, wieners and cum, mixing.
He loves that.
Mixing like really gory violence with very silly comedy. Like it all lines up perfectly. You'd think, oh, Austin worked on the show or something. Yeah. Both of these. I mean, literally the two shows' premises are season 6, it's Assassins in the Afterlife, and season 11, hotel where people are trying to get out, get out of death, right? Like that's a complete coincidence. I didn't know about this until just now, but it seems perfect. And I think what's happening is like the uncanny valley effect. It's so close. It's so close to something I would do, but just not quite right. Every little difference, it's like sandpaper to me. And I'm not sure that has anything to do with the show. I think it's me, because it's so close to something I would make that it annoys me.
Okay. Then I suppose you do have a nuanced take. I truly did not know that you were going to be like, it's so much of like what I would do. That's why I hate it. It's such a unique take. I enjoy it. I didn't love it at first. It felt like it was a little too crude for my liking. It's, very like much like, hey, we're in hell. Let's come, shit, boners, pussy or whatever, that sort of stuff. And I'm generally like not down for that necessarily. It just doesn't like ring true. And I also have, this is definitely a prejudice that exists within me that I'm still trying to think through. For some reason, cartoons just don't click my mind the way they used to. There is probably like a solid decade's worth of animation that I keep hearing is amazing, and I just cannot tell you why, but I have zero interest in experiencing any of it. So I was like, I just don't know. I just don't think I dig animation the same way I used to or whatever. But I enjoyed this. I'm getting more into musicals. This is a musical. There's some really, really good numbers. I have been learning the lyrics to Loser Baby with Joa. We've been sharing them back and forth. We are going to memorize this song and perform it live at a location unbeknownst to all of us, including us right now. But I was able to enjoy this show. I did not think too much about how I work creatively when I watched this or anything like that. I did like think to myself like, oh, they're doing a hotel as well. Maybe this like hotel thing is more of like a vibe than I realized. But I had fun. I think It's also a pretty quick series to watch, only 8 episodes, half hour a piece. Like, this is pretty quick to blast through. I guess I should note, because I didn't know about it until I watched it later, and I didn't even tell Joe about it specifically. There is a pilot that is considered canon to the show that was released back in 2019. It had, this is before they had any, big names, I think, necessarily really attached to it or anything like that. So it took a while for this to get picked up and animated and everything like that. But, there's, I guess, 8 episodes and then like a 40-minute or so pilot you can go check out as well.
Yeah, so this has been a long time project from this person Vivian, who I didn't follow. Apparently, she was like big in fandom spaces or whatever. The whole thing has a very, and I don't mean to be rude, but like a kind of like a Tumblr feel to it. That there was just a certain kind of like internet content creator person, like someone who had their formative years during like Homestuck and Undertale.
Yeah. You're saying this because that one motherfucker on Reddit said Dice Funk was a little Tumblr-y.
I forgot about that. That was funny, though. Which is probably fucking true. I have a total blind spot for my own cringe. Like, I pretend to be an elf and talk about capitalism. That's fucking cringe. It's embarrassing.
It's not about cringe. It's that... it's fine for them to be like this because we're all fucking artists who have our inspiration in weird places.
But yeah, it's like little differences. Like, we will call our episodes like fisting the little twink or whatever, but it's that we got there through an organic conversation.
I am finding the most crowbar jam way to call the next episode fisting the little twink.
But the sense I get...
Speaker Mox is going to walk up to you guys and be like, life is much like fisting the little twink.
I'm sorry. But I feel like the show, which obviously has like a writer's room and it's a whole process, apparently it took 5 years to make or whatever. It feels like they were like, okay, we need a joke for this scene. What if I say butthole? It's like, that's not a joke. It's just you just being like naughty. It's kind of annoying. And I don't have the thing about animation you do. I all that's the same to me. Live action anime, American animation. So I've watched BoJack, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, all that stuff. So for me, this is just another show. I did think it was the art style is a little flat for me. It's not like good looking. I'm not trying to say it's like everyone is like bad at art and it's ugly or anything, but it's not like a selling point for me the way it looks. I'll say all the characters have a very this is my precious OC. Like, I feel like I'm being so cruel, but it's like I created this character in a vacuum. Like, here's like their likes and dislikes, here's their vibe playlist or whatever, and then it's like, oh, now they have to be in a story, and it's all very like jumbled. We could go into the world building, but I'm a big Bible nerd, and I'm like I'm just constantly like, okay, it seems like you did some research and then YOLO'd other parts of it, but whatever, it's not what it's about. But like, why do they have money when they can just summon material from nothing at any point? They literally, at the last episode, they just completely, whatever, who gives a shit? Fuck me, I'm stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I can see some of what you're going for. I will simply say that I am enjoying the show. One of my biggest thoughts as I was listening to it is Erica Henningsen, who plays sort of our lead character, Charlie. Has a great voice. She played Katie to connect to Mean Girls recently in the Broadway adaptation of Mean Girls for a period of time. Amazing voice. But I have such a hard time when I hear her not hearing Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation. It's not just that the characters are both like uber positive. I was like, it's like the exact same voice in my mind, like to the point where I'm almost just like, almost like a paid doppelganger kind of thing, which I found amusing. And I don't mean that as negative. Again, her voice is incredible. I just can't hear Charlie talk without thinking it's Leslie Knope a little bit. But I enjoyed a lot. I had fun. I'm a big Serpentious fan. I'm going to start writing fanfics where they end up happy and in love. So you know what? It all worked. It all brought me back.
I'm very happy for you. I mean, when we started the show and the first line Keith David said, I was like double taked. I was like, what the fuck is that, Keith David? He does a great job. I feel like if everyone was giving that level of performance, it'd be great. But like you said, it's a musical. There's basically at least one, sometimes two songs in every episode, and the episodes are only 20 minutes long. So a lot of it is music, and the songs are just really hit and miss for me. There's like a really good one about TV versus radio, and then there's the one you referred to earlier where Keith David just does his Princess and the Frog shit. It ruled. And then there's like 8 ones where I was like, I want to die. I wish I was also in hell.
You're so mean. They're not bad. I will say that I think that like many musical albums, there are songs that are better than others, but I have like 3 stored on my phone that I'm going to listen to. And you could tell that like kind of there's like theater kid energy to a little bit of it, but that's fine. Like that enthusiasm is infectious. So I enjoy it a lot. I think everybody does a great job. Keith David's just very notable because his voice is so deep and well known. Like the character talks, you're like, Captain Anderson? I'm immediately at attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally unfair, and I'm definitely opening myself up to like accusations of hypocrisy because I'm always doing shit like this. I'm always like, what if we had like a really serious, dark conversation about a topic that you shouldn't joke about, and then someone walked in and did a big fart, which is what this show does. There's a whole episode centered around, there's no other way to say it, like sexual slavery, and I was like, this is not fucking funny at all. And just like the show just asks you to like laugh with it, and I just wasn't in the mood. I wasn't in the headspace. It wasn't doing it for me. But everyone else seemed to enjoy it.
I'll note the episode you're referring to in particular, I think, is episode 4, which, I think it's an episode that's going to be mixed. It's a polarizing thing because it doesn't really shy away from stuff. But I think it handled the topic relatively responsibly. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think there's some parts of it that are a little childish, but I still enjoyed it, and I disagree with you dismissed it at one point very much. You're like, yeah, I also enjoyed The Good Place back when I watched it originally. Harumph. And now we see there's more nuanced thoughts behind it, and I appreciate and thank you for sharing them.
It's very much like trying to leave while someone's like trying to talk your ear off about something. You're like, actually, I have to go, so I'm gonna head out.
Well, we have a bunch of other things on our topics. I didn't want to spend too long.
Sure.
Plus, the people who love Hasbin Hotel just want to know that we watched it, and we all got something from it. Some of us enjoyed it more than others, but people always like to hear what we're watching, so wanted to share that with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be more lore and stuff that's going to get released, and maybe it'll go in some other directions that will make me eat some of my criticisms. But there's just so many writing things that rub me the wrong way too. There's just like plot lines where it's like, oh, the angels are invincible, we can't kill them, and then it's like, so for like 10,000 years or whatever, you never tried anything like what the way it turns out. Like people just get bonked to death later. I don't know. I don't want to be a fucking a Cinema Sins ding, but it felt really thinly written.
I enjoyed that. I think about 3 times now we have been like, well, I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts on Hasbin Hotel. And
try to stop me, bitch.
You've Columboed your way back and like, hey, we're done here. Just one more thing, though. Hey, you saying in 10,000 years no one's tried to kill an angel before? It sounds like pretty poor writing to me. Let's take this back to the board if we could.
Yeah, you're trying to say that everyone in the universe seems to think souls can't be redeemed. It seems actually really easy. Once again, the entire existence of humanity, not a single person tried it. Once again, this is a storyline in The Good Place, and it has a very good payoff that I like a lot. So either they do something similar, or I think it just doesn't compare very well. Just the Good Place #1 fan. If Good Place has 10,000 fans,
I enjoy
I'm one
The
of them.
Good Place as well.
I feel like defensive because, like I said, there's so many comparisons to my own work. We right now, you and I are doing a series about whether people are good or not, and we're hanging out in a hotel. How could I not feel the heat? There's sirens in the distance.
There's no competition, Austin.
Your brain works so differently. You get so in your own head about things like, oh, I put the salt on the left and the pepper on the right. Are they going to be mad at me? And it's like, no, what are you talking about? And then there's like a real problem you should be worried about. And you're like, yeah, whatever, dismissive wanking gesture. I don't understand your priorities.
We're so far apart right now, and we're gonna come together. Like as this episode continues, we will slowly align further and further until the grand crescendo, which I cannot wait to talk about. I've been dying.
Our single brain cells are gonna slam into each other like the Large Hadron Collider at the end of this episode. Holy shit! But yeah, we watched a bunch of anime. I have another one to talk about, but do you want to switch gears for a sec before we can do that?
Sure. I suppose we should reference the thing that we came into this on, which is the reason you and Joa flew to Harrisburg, was to do the Murders at Karlov Manor pre-release. So we just attended a pre-release. We did it. I don't want to act like I'm a big deal or nothing, but I did go 3-0. You can't see it, but I'm wiping that dirt off my shoulder. I'm getting it off, Got to keep myself pristine. I am royalty. I am an elite. 3-0, can't stop at that.
You are not the bad girl Morlock. You're the good girl Eeyore. So
you called me a good girl finally.
Oh my god, we can't get into this again. That was contextual and situational. So for the audience, Quinn demands good girl plaudits from all these fuckboys, all these people on the apps tripping over themselves to tell you good girl. And I'm saying it's a precious resource you have to ration. You can't just give out anyway. You don't need to.
Why not? I've been so good.
But it doesn't mean anything if you say it all the time.
We had a Dice Funk episode where you were losing your mind afterwards, and I was like, so would you say I'm a good girl? And you were like, And I was like, oh, I can't even get it then.
Oh my god! Also, yeah, we just finished the first arc of the season. It's good, and we should talk about it maybe a little bit. But the stuff that's coming up is gonna completely fucking blow your whole situation out your asshole, audience.
I thought you were gonna say it's gonna blow your holes out. And I was like, oh, all of your holes.
Yeah, no, everyone listening, your holes are in danger from the audio coming your way.
Oh no.
But yeah, not to brag, but Quinn and I ran the table. We raffle stomped the game store. Both of us went undefeated in our sealed event. Not only did I not lose a match, I didn't lose a game. I don't know if there's any humble way to say that, but we showed some people how the game of Magic the Gathering was played.
Yeah, I think I ended up, if you were to go by games, I finished 6-1. I did lose one game. But otherwise, one out. And I don't want to say it was a lot of skill. I opened up a pretty good mythic in my pool. I opened up Agris Kos, the Spirit of Justice. This is the Boros 2 and a red-white for a 2/4 legendary creature spirit detective with double strike vigilance. And whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, choose up to one target creature. If it's suspected, exile it. Otherwise, suspect it. This card won games. Just took over a game immediately if it was not immediately killed, and I did have a way to get it back. It was absolutely going to run away with the game. The suspect mechanic is actually something I thought worked really, really well. It unclogged an otherwise very clogged board state. There were just ways that you would immediately be like, I'm going to put it on your creature, now you can't stop it. My guy's going through, or I'm going to put on this one thing that really kind of needs to become blocked, or it becomes a menace. Like it just helped a lot with making games kind of get closed out, which I really, really enjoyed. And it was also potential removal as well. I definitely used it to remove like important board pieces from my opponents from time to time.
Interesting. So in the murder mystery set, you're saying you sided with the cops. Interesting. Really makes you think about if your opinions on animation could be trusted.
Oh my god! You got me there. I have no defense. I will simply speak to, I guess, a little bit of the set, which is that I enjoyed this. I came into this set very, very nervous. I wasn't super excited by the flavor of it. Like I was kind of into it, but I was like, I'm just not necessarily vibing with all these mechanics. And then, knowing that Joa didn't, go through spoiler season or anything, we watched a rules video prior to going, and I was like, this is the most insane, incomprehensible rules video I've ever seen. Like, I feel like I didn't realize until this moment how unintuitive this set is. There's no, like, logic to what suspect does or what collect evidence does. It's all just nonsense keywords with rules attached to it afterwards. It's very gibberish and, you know, gamified lingo at that point. But as far as the game itself played, I thought it actually worked pretty well. I didn't get the opportunity to play against anyone who did collect evidence. I don't know how that worked, but Disguise felt good and fun. I think the Ward 2 actually really helped to, like, make you not feel like shit if your card got destroyed. Like, there's a couple cards that were, like, kind of built specifically to kill disguised creatures, but otherwise, like, I was never going to burn a shock for 3 mana to kill something. I was like, that's not generally going to be worth it. Unless I'm going to win the game with it or something like that. So I thought that worked out pretty well. And clue tokens definitely had like a payoff. I'm in a Boros deck. I'm burning through my cards pretty quickly. Anytime I got a clue token, I was super excited because I would crack that almost immediately and get some more gas in the hand.
Interesting. So I played a Golgari deck, mostly kind of mid-range beaters, not really any big finishers except for the Axebane Ferox, which is kind of a worse version of Questing Beast, so a Death Touch Haste 4/4. I will say that you said you didn't see any evidence collected. A lot of my games were evidence-based, and I was really surprised by how often that mechanic was used. I assumed going in that it would be hard to fill your graveyard deliberately because there's not really a self-mill theme. It seemed more like a constructed mechanic because it's kind of a variation of Delve, a famously very powerful mechanic, but I used it and a lot of my opponents used it, and it seemed like it was more useful than I was expecting. Someone had the Phoenix that when it dies, collect evidence 4 and it comes back. They brought it back like 3 or 4 times, and it was like, it made it really hard to close out the game. So that was an interesting one. Someone else used Polygraph Orb. Someone I was joking they were playing an Orb tribal deck because they had like 4 of them, and it's just you collect evidence 3 and your opponent has to discard or sacrifice something or they lose 3 life, and it's just a constant beatdown. It was very funny, that Orb deck. So and then my own stuff, like I said, the Ferox, to target it you have to collect evidence 4, so it just made it really painful to kill. So that was my experience. I won with a lot of like mid-range green and black threats. I also had the Hunted Bone Brute. I don't know if you remember the Hunted cards.
The one game I really lost was because of this card. I ended up winning that match, but I came very close to losing my first round because of this. Because my opponent played a 1-drop, immediately enchanted it with a thing that makes your detective get +2/+2, which everything in this set pretty much is a detective, which I'll get into it a little bit. And then played this, and it was threatening, I think, 9 damage on turn 3 or 4. Like, it was insane. I was like, I'm the beep deep deck here, and I'm about to get fucking smoked out of this match.
Yeah, so there are these cards that are hunted, Hunted Dragon, Hunted Horror, Hunted Nightmare. I'm looking at a list now. There's like 10 of them, and they're kind of a Ravnica staple where they give you a really undercosted creature, but give your opponent some stuff in return, basically the things that are hunting them. The joke on this card is that you're making a bone monstrosity and it's being chased by dogs, which is very funny. But because of the morph kind of variant, you can disguise it face down and then flip it, and so it doesn't enter the battlefield while face up, which does not draw the dogs, which is very funny and very effective. Yes. It's just a cool design, and it was really it worked well. So I want to shout that one out as well. Interesting thing, like I said, is collect evidence. I had some people ask, like, does it have to be the exact cost, or can it be more? And so I had to explain that. But by far, the thing people had the most trouble with was cloaking or disguising, because it was like, wait, this has what ability? It has what stats? So just like, having to remember it. Was pretty difficult for people. I've been in more formats before. I played, back in the day, I think it was literally when I started, was Onslaught Block, or around there was when the mechanic was created, which was 21 years ago, 23. I don't know. It was like 2000. And then they brought it back for Tarkir. So they keep trying to make this work. And I will say it's great for limited because it gives you so many interesting decision points, so many different ways to bluff. It's never really been a great constructed mechanic because there's usually only like one or two playable threats in a color.
You're gonna be able to figure out what's face down just based off of what's actively a playable card.
Yeah, it's either Den Protector or the Death Mist Raptor. That's the only ones that you're playing. So I don't know if it's gonna have that much constructed viability, and I will say the prices in the set are notably really low. Like the big money card is that the white Delny Streetwise Lookout. It's like a 2/2 for 3. Which I'm sure is going to do work in Commander, but it's not exactly Shieldred the Apocalypse, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's $18, it looks like, as of time of recording. It's also a Mythic, so that plays into the expensiveness of it a little bit.
Ravnica sets have always had a hard time drawing value because they're very flavor forward, with the factions and like picking your favorite. But it's hard to just have kind of those staple effects, those ones that are like, oh, everybody needs this. This is going to be a huge seller, like the Great Henge or something, the One Ring. And so they've actually released Ravnica Remastered somewhat recently, and those prices are really bad for game stores.
Yeah. We were just joking how we got like 4 emails from Card Kingdom, which I never get. This must have been something they activated recently. Like, oh, we'll actually start blowing out emails to people. But they sent out like 4 emails in a day, like Ravnica Remastered prices lower than ever. And it just kept kind of getting lower and lower throughout the day, where I was like, damn, somebody has far too much Ravnica Remastered that they're like, we have to move this shit for the love of God.
If you open Cyclonic Rift in every pack, maybe you'll make your money back, but it's really rough. And you hear me saying, oh, low prices, like maybe that's a bad thing. Obviously, for players, it's good. It makes the game more accessible. The problem, of course, is for the game stores, which let you have the community of people you play with, because if all their shit is worthless, then they're financially in trouble. It's a push and pull, right? You want the game to be profitable enough to be healthy and growing, but not expensive enough to keep you out. There's no like easy way to solve that problem, right? They're just in conflict.
Yeah, in like a slightly kind of connected way, I did want to pull back to the draft environment a little bit, which is to say, contrary to kind of how Ravnica has always existed, this was not a format to splash. This was a format where you picked 2 colors, and it kind of felt like you needed to stay in that lane. I think every opponent I played 3 colors, and I think I took a game off of all of them, usually because they just got mana screwed. Maybe they had a murder in hand but hadn't drawn a double black yet, or maybe they were just waiting on that 3rd color to finally come down to do something, or it just messed up with enough. They played too many tap lands, and I just managed to kind of beep through it. But this was a format where it felt like it was very important to just kind of stick to 2 colors. Because there wasn't actually a lot of fixing for this, which is very rare for a Ravnica set. Famously, they have Guild Gates, which are like common lands that'll tap for 2 different colors. They'll have lockets or clue stones or signets. There will be, a whole bunch of like incidental stuff to allow you to play other cards from other guilds, even though you try to center yourself in one of them. And I did not feel like that was viable in this environment. Perhaps if you're very skilled, it might work out, but I think casually I saw a lot of people kind of greedily splash and get punished for it.
Yeah, I definitely did not have the confidence to go into 3 colors. I would have been obliterated as much as I liked some of my other cards. But I think this is a really high skill format, like a skill intensive format. Like I said, with the morphs, you're having to choose there's so many decision points, right? I'm trying to remember who said that. I think it was the creator of SimCity who said a game is a series of decisions. That's probably a misquote. But in that sense, I really like this. As someone who's a huge fucking nerd, I think this might be a pretty difficult set for relatively low experience players, but I'm looking at the upcoming schedule and I'm like, God, I hope the next couple of sets are like this, because I'm so excited about the theming. And maybe I'm biased because I did so well. I think this is the 2nd pre-release in a row I've been undefeated, and I'm just like, the designers are cooking right now as far as gameplay goes. This is an Austin era as far as these sets go.
It is also worth noting that usually when we do a pre-release at Fuzzy Wall, the store is packed from like wall to wall with people. Usually you have 2 or 3 matches that are happening with people standing up at counters and playing. This was not the case. This was noticeably a smaller turnout, not like insanely. It's not like it was like 7 of us. It was still probably, I think, like maybe like 16 people or so. But, you know, considering we were 4 of the people with our friend Danny also coming along, it was kind of notable that this was like a smaller turnout than I've seen for some other events where there's, you know, 20, 25 people. I think like the Lord of the Rings one, there was like almost 30 players. So I think maybe some of it is just people not being interested in the flavor of this set to some extent, which I get. Like it's a little alien. It's tough to really tell what, you know, the flavor is going into this or anything like that. But I had a lot of fun. I thought this was a fun format. I might try giving the draft environment a try at some point. But I enjoyed myself. I had fun with this set so far. And granted, a lot of that's biased. I opened up a bomb mythic and went, you know, 3-0. So, you know, my feelings on it are going to be relatively positive.
Yeah, I as we were driving there, you asked me what card do I want to open, right? Because I've previously spoken about how there's not really anything for my existing commander decks here. I'm just going to take it on its own, you know, its own value as like a sealed environment. And I just said, oh, I want the mole god for the memes. You know, it's a god and it's a mole. That's funny. And I definitely opened Anzrag the Quake mole. Not in my sealed pool, which would have been hilarious, but in my prize packs. So I not only won out, I also got the only card I thought would be fun to get. I don't have any use for it. I don't play Gruul, but it's a cool card to have. Look at him. He's having a great time, digging a big hole.
He's doing great. The 2 things I wanted to mention before I forgot, I'm looking at a page to remind myself things. I mentioned before about detectives. I think usually I'm not a huge fan of Typal in limited. It's very difficult. Like even in the last set of Ixalan, there was a little bit of it with like dinosaurs and a little bit with vampires and stuff like that. And oftentimes I find it very difficult and challenging. Famously, that was the issue with the first Ixalan, which was all Typal themed, but didn't have a whole lot of crossover between the types. The thing in this set is it really only cared about one type, which was detectives. Is a card a detective or not? And almost the entire set, like I not the entire thing, obviously, but like it felt like a very healthy majority of the cards in this set were detectives. So if you had a detective synergy card, it felt like you got to use it, which was really satisfying. There are cards that punish detectives. There are cards that reward detectives. It just felt like there were a lot of ways to get a lot of good advantage out of cards that had detective synergy to it, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, since I was in the villainous colors, I didn't see too much of that. But yeah, the clue stuff was good too. So I think people will try detectives in standard. I don't know if it'll be successful. Black is still so powerful right now. It feels really stupid to crack a clue into Shieldred or a fucking Orcish Bowmaster or whatever. Like, that's a very feel bad situation. But yeah, I think the set was well designed. It's like I said, maybe a little complicated, a little finicky for new players, but as an enfranchised player, I found it really satisfying and rewarding. So I liked it a lot. I guess I will draft on Arena, and if anything sticks out to me, I can come back to it. But I think this is a successful set for my own purposes, if not a smash hit. Like you said, we don't. There's like slightly lower attendance, lower prices. I don't know how that's all going to shake out. But next up is Thunder Junction, the Wild West villain set. So that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. The one last thing, I just want to mention this is not a huge thing, but Wizards needs to stop being fucking stupid with how they release cards. They did this in the Lord of the Rings, and they did it here. In all of your pre-release kits, there's your promo rare, which you can play in your deck. That's like one of the famous things of pre-releases is you get 6 packs, and then you get 1 rare or mythic, which is a great way to like give you some direction on your deck. But they've started doing this thing recently where sometimes they just throw in a little extra card for no reason, but they don't include anything for you as a consumer to know what this card is. So in this set, after you got your promo mythic or rare, you also got one of 3 different cards that was kind of used just for commander, and you can't play that card in your deck, but there is no rules text anywhere within the pack itself or anything like that to define it. You had to rely entirely on other people at the game store telling you, which did happen, but I also heard one person got upset because they were like, hey, dude, you weren't supposed to play that card in your deck. And just somebody who didn't know, they just had no idea. They opened a pre-release kit and are like, oh, cool, there's another card in here. I guess we get 2 this time. Like, I want them to start being consistent with this shit, and like put a little rules text card in front of it. It's like, hey there, fella, slow down. This card is, yours for your collection, but not for this pre-release or some shit like that. They put so much goddamn marketing material in my face with their product. Can you at least put like adequate rules in there for what we can use or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get everyone the same information. Obviously, as someone who follows the announcements, I knew, but I don't know how a normal person would. How would a regular-brained civilian?
How would Joa have ever known if we didn't tell Joa? Essentially, it's just there's no rules text. There's nothing in there to say what cards you can or cannot use.
It's not like they're even particularly valuable either, right? Like the cards they give are bulk rare.
It looks like the wolf is going for a little bit, but yeah, they're going to go down. I mean, they'll go down and then they're going to go up because it sounds like the only way to get them is through pre-release kits. I don't know if they're available in booster packs. Again, it's this weird thing Wizards does where they're like, what if we were... It sounds like the Mad Hatter sometimes decides where cards goes. They're like, wouldn't it be crazy if 3 of the cards were just in the pre-release kit? And you're like, well, why would we do that? And it's like, oh, it's so silly. Well, everybody will love it.
Yeah, a lot of questionable decisions here. Also, and this is neither here nor there. I'm not in love with the split cards. It's another Ravnica tradition. Only 5 of them uncommon, kind of unplayable. I guess their only upside is they have really high mana cost for collect evidence, but it feels like an utilized aspect of the design. This is just Austin's design note.
I was gonna say I managed to run one and it worked out. I was able to kill some creatures with it, and then the other side was like a big mass revive creatures, which was like, okay, this could be like a game ender if I need to. But I guess the only mechanic we didn't talk about at all were cases. I did have a case in my deck. I only got to play it once, and I solved it, and then it was immediately destroyed before I could get any benefit out of it. So I guess I can't talk to it too extensively. Did you run into any cases at all?
I saw one played against me. I didn't play any myself. Someone used a Case of the Gateway Express, which is a play on Murder on the Orient Express, and it's normally a white removal spell, but they tried to use it on my morph, my warded disguise creature, and that's not how that works. So it did not avail them, unfortunately.
Ah, that's a bummer.
Yeah. But yeah, what targets? That's another thing. It's like when you play the game long enough, you understand targeting. But for a normal person, it seems counterintuitive when something says like each, do 2 damage to each creature, and they're like, you can't target my creatures. And it's like, no, I'm not targeting them. And they're like, what do you mean? You're doing damage to them? I'm sorry, that's just not what the word target means right now in this specific instance.
The wild thing is explaining how ward works, because there's very famously like another keyword that people use of just hexproof, which is like you cannot target my thing. But ward is not technically hexproof. Ward is if you do not pay this additional cost, then your thing is countered. And there are specific cards in this set that say this card is uncounterable. And then because the implication is you are meant to use these against disguised creatures as like a little text, like a little reminder text that's like, this includes ward abilities. But there's a lot of people who I think maybe didn't even realize like, oh, this card's useful against morphs or disguise or whatever because of that. So, very interesting little stuff there.
Yeah, and getting all the removal honestly never has served me wrong. That's part of the reason I went into black, is because I got a couple of premium removal spells, including Murder, the classic one, which is very on theme for this set. And I top decked that against that fucking Phoenix at the moment of truth. It was so good. It felt like a Yu-Gi-Oh episode where I was like, there's like 2 kill spells left. If I draw it, I win right here. And I just pulled it off and I just kissed it and I showed it to them and we just shook hands. It was sick.
All right, so I think we've pretty much covered the Murders at Karlov Manor pre-release. We'll talk more about it. I think Fallout spoilers should be coming out soon, so we might talk about those a little bit. There's not going to be a pre-release for it, but we might talk about those card designs when they start coming out. And then other than that, I think Thunder Junction is sometime in like mid-April. So we'll have more to talk about, I guess, probably late March, sometime around then when they start doing spoilers.
Yep. So you get a brief respite. You get a break from us jabbering about cardboard. You're welcome. Do you want to start talking about films, or do you want to briefly touch the Grammys, which happened last night, and I didn't even know they were happening?
I really have almost zero thoughts on the Grammys. I didn't even really look up the winners. The only thing I'll note is just through like looking through subreddits and stuff like that. The only things I know is Taylor Swift announced a new album. And then Miley Cyrus must have won for something. And she seemed genuinely very happy. And she had great looks throughout the whole night. I loved her hair. It was very like powerful diva. So I really enjoyed that. But like beyond that, legitimately, I have like zero knowledge of what the Grammys were or what they were about.
Yeah, it's funny because we pay like probably way too much attention to the Oscars, a thing which does not deserve our notice, and yet we are paying pretty close attention. I don't know why we ignore the Grammys. I mean, I listened to a good amount of music. It's just how it turned out. There are a couple of things I want to run by you real quick. One is Best Song for Visual Media. This is a category with 5 nominees, 4 of them from the same film.
Oh, is this Barbie?
Barbie. The only non-Barbie nominee is Lift Me Up from Black Panther. I don't know how common that is. That seems like a wild mismanagement of the process. Something went wrong there. You can't be nominating 4 songs from the same movie. What the fuck?
Yeah, it does seem pretty crazy. Also, Black Panther feels like 2 years ago at this point, so I'm shocked that was up for nomination. There has to have been a Grammy in between that and here, but maybe it was too late for one cycle and early enough for this one. I don't know.
Yeah, it must have been Black Panther Wakanda Forever, a 2022 superhero film. So yeah, that was 2 years ago. I don't know. But which Barbie song do you think won?
I assume it was What Was I Made For?
It sure was. Do you think this presages the Academy Awards? Do you think Billy's going to do well there, or is it going to be I'm Just Ken?
No, it's going to be What Was I Made For? I think I'm Just Ken is very funny, and I'm sure they might enjoy getting to have it performed at some point, but What Was I Made For is like the kind of song that wins at the Grammys. Like, I'm just saying, there's not a lot of like fun songs that I feel like win that category. It's like, who did the Bond theme? What power ballad was out there, or whatever. And I love What Was I Made For. I think that's the clear front runner.
Yeah, I mean, well, you briefly mentioned this, but Billie is second time in a row, I think, winning this. She also won for No Time to Die. She is like an award magnet. She won a bunch of other stuff, too. She didn't even release an album this year. They still couldn't stop giving her awards. Best score for visual media. Who do you think won that? These are movie related, so I know you care a little bit at least.
Best score for visual media?
This is a funny category because it, of course, includes John Williams' work for Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, a movie we fully drowned in a gutter together on this program.
Because I feel like there's stuff that would be nominated at the Oscars that wouldn't get nominated here. Like, I can't imagine they're like, oh no, don't you remember the score in Oppenheimer? Like, it just doesn't feel like the Grammys vibe.
That's so funny because that's what won.
Oh, is it? That's very cool then. I feel like that's understandable. But that just doesn't feel like like when you think of the Grammys, you're like, I don't know, like Taylor Swift walking up and like passing by Tom Cruise. I can't imagine a world where they're just like, no, didn't you guys respect the low, like, intensable fucking force that was the Oppenheimer soundtrack?
Yeah, I like this because this is the brief Venn diagram overlap between the Grammys and Oscars, or these movie categories. So looking at Best Score, Oppenheimer and Indiana Jones and Barbie I think are all nominated. It's actually just Indiana Jones and Oppenheimer. That's very funny. Killers of the Flower Moon, American Fiction, and Poor Things are in the Oscars, and the Fabelmans, Black Panther, and Barbie are in the Grammys. Once again, Fabelmans feels like years ago. I don't know.
It has to be a cutoff thing that Fabelmans released late 2022, and then there's some cutoff point where they're like, now it's eligible or something like that. It is very strange, though. Fabelmans and Black Panther 2, quite a while ago in my mind.
Yeah. A couple other stories. I bet people have heard about this, but Killer Mike won Best Rap Performance, Best Rap Album, and Best Rap Song. Basically swept the rap awards and then was promptly arrested.
It's a real high and low kind of situation.
Apparently misdemeanor battery, which means he put his hands on someone. Apparently
I don't like this now.
They're not pressing charges. He was released pretty much immediately, and he did an interview this morning when they asked what happened, and he just said, like, I was looking good. I had like a nice suit on. I had a nice chain. Did you see my car? Like, just deliberately not answering the question in a way, just kind of changing the subject. Seems like he doesn't. I think he said, like, yeah, we had a great party. There was a little speed bump, but the night went great. I was out all night. Just like doesn't seem to be bothering him. I'm sure he's gonna be fine. But eagle-eared listeners will recall I talked about the album Michael earlier this year, or I guess late last year, because of how time works. And as much as I love Killer Mike, I've loved him for a long time. I was not impressed with that one. That's if maybe this detail will jog your memory. The spoken word Dave Chappelle track I thought was a pretty big red flag for the vibes of that piece. But he did win everything that he was up for, and it was kind of, his night in hip hop. I don't know if you're following what people are saying about the music industry, but after 2 decades of hip hop dominance, it seems like that is starting to wane. Like country is still the biggest thing out there, but yeah, I don't know. People are trying to read the tea leaves about the future of hip hop.
Yeah, I mean, there's cycles to everything, and I imagine we're still kind of discovering the foundation of what is going to become the new sort of pop music of today. Pop being, of course, very like unfortunately named. It's a genre, but also just defines whatever is the most popular thing at the time. So we'll be curious to see what ends up kind of topping the charts. Right now, nobody has any idea. For a very long time, it was whatever got a lot of play on TikTok, although that is a news story right now that, UMG, Universal Music Group or something like that, are pulling all of their music off of TikTok because they got offered a pretty raw deal in their mind for their catalog, and as such, you can't use their stuff without getting like a takedown notice, essentially. So it'll be very curious to see what happens now, because a lot of careers have been launched right at this point in time exclusively because a song might get big on TikTok. It might just become a trend.
Yeah, I saw there was a viral post I saw a while ago. It was like, who's Mitski? And someone's like, it's the person who does all of the TikTok songs. And people being very mad about that being how she was being referred to. It's someone who does TikTok songs. But in Quinn news, Foo Fighters up for 3 Grammys, lost all of them. I'm sure you were waiting on pins and needles to hear how they got served by their latest album, but all of the guitar categories, there are 6 left. Boy Genius won Best Rock Performance, Best Rock Song, and Best Alternative Album. And Paramore won Best Alternative Performance and Best Rock Album. So
good for them.
Besides Metallica's win for Best Metal Performance, very funny. Metallica's the only one who ever wins Best Metal Performance, basically. All of the rock and metal awards went to women. Every single one.
I think absolutely incredible. I mean, we're in a weird place where I don't really know what rock defines by anymore. I have heard a little bit of Boy Genius, but I never really know what qualifies as rock per se anymore. It's sort of large things of like 40 years worth of musical stylings between two different like ends of artists, and they're like, same category. That's why I'm not here to really speak too much to the Grammys, is because I really don't understand the metrics to which things are judged.
Yeah, I was having this conversation last night. It's like, how are Boy Genius and Gorillaz in the same category? What does this have to do with like Chubby Checker and fucking Elvis Presley? You know, how are these all rock? What does that even mean? But it's a fool's errand to try to fight it. Just assume these are the guitar categories for what that matters. So the Metallica album, I thought it was actually a return to form for them, but I wouldn't have been sad to see Ghost or Slipknot win. I obviously like those bands a lot. But it is what it is, you know.
Now, did you have any big thoughts on the New Age album of the year, Socials by Carla Patullo?
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Well, all right, we'll save that talk for next time then.
Yeah. Taylor Swift obviously won a lot of the big awards. Album of the year, probably the biggest one. A lot of talk about how it's been what, 25 years since a black woman won. Obviously, the whole system is fucked up. We were looking at this up last night. It was something like only like 6 Asian people have ever won an acting Oscar award. Like the ethnicity categories and shit. Yeah. You look at that data and it's like chilling how fucking white everything is. It really sucks. But when I heard that Miley Cyrus won record of the year, my immediate reaction was, oh my god, she's still doing stuff. I guess I really am out of the loop. I don't have any problem with her. I just thought it was very funny. I didn't know she was still doing stuff, so that's cool.
As I'm happy for her. She seems to be legitimately very happy to receive a Grammy. I did not listen to the new album. I've heard Flowers once or twice, and I was like, this song's meh. But you know, I don't know. The only thing I care about with the Grammys is like the outfits and like the glamour of it, and she looked great. Like if you look at pictures of Miley Cyrus at the Grammys, she had like 4 different fucking wardrobe changes. Her hair looks absolutely incredible. But like, I don't care who wins these awards. It's just not my jam.
Yeah, that's funny because I obviously don't have even a single thought about fashion. It's never occurred to me that people wear clothes. But I do use it as like a recommendation algorithm, basically, where I'm like, oh, Miley Cyrus is still in the, let me check it out. I did listen to Flowers. It's fine. It's not like my favorite song of all time, but it's good. Also, Olivia Rodrigo, someone who I wouldn't have listened to really, but all the nominations and stuff were like, oh, I should really give this a chance, and she's good. That seems cool.
Yeah. I really have no more thoughts to offer on the Grammys. It as you said, this snuck up on me. I completely forgot that it was like around this time of the year. And like there was a part of my brain that was like, oh no, the Grammys must have just passed by and I didn't care. Like I must have just missed it. And then I was like, oh no, I guess it was today.
We're going to have the exact opposite reaction as the Oscars get closer. We're going to have extremely granular thoughts on every single thing that happens. Should I make notes on the outfits? It never occurred to me to do so.
At the Oscars or the Grammys?
No, the Oscars. So I need to know what Christopher Nolan's shoes are.
No, you don't need to do it. All I will say is I'm taking note of it for like a particular Dice Funk character in the future. That people may see one day, and like that stuff's important to me to some degree. I'm still not like a design person. If you've seen the way I've dressed, you certainly wouldn't be like, Quinn cares a lot about her fashion. I just like seeing people dressed up nice. I don't know. I think this is like an inherent poor person mentality that's been ingrained into my brain, that when I was very young, my mom was like, look at these starlets, look at the stars of Hollywood, and no, we will never be like that. So like there's like a childlike part of my brain that opens up and oohs and ahs when I see people in very fancy dresses and suits.
That's so funny. No, I feel like where I'm from, like noticing what someone's wearing is a great way for someone to be like, you're gay. Shut up, bitch.
Well, I am. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh yeah, I guess that hit different.
I'm like, thank you.
Oh man, Michelle Obama won a Grammy, and so did Dave Chappelle. This is bad. I'm closing this window. Fuck these people.
Austin just discovers actually award shows bad.
No, it's all very, very evil. So we watched some films we can talk about, and I don't know if you want to do this episode because I know you recently talked about this with Nick, but I did finish Jujutsu Kaisen, the biggest anime of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely talk about Jujutsu Kaisen. I can only offer a certain level of thoughts to it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should talk about it because I spent 20 something hours watching it. I might as well get some content out of it. It's I mean, would you consider it one of the big series going currently? Obviously, One Piece is number one, but like, what else is there? Demon Slayer's over.
So anime functions in cycles right now, and stuff. Whatever seasons are going, there's usually like a spring, fall, winter kind of cycle to it, like kind of seasonal. And Jujutsu Kaisen has definitely been the biggest one in its seasons that it went into. Different seasons will have different things kind of reaching at the top. It ends up being stuff usually very popular, but Jujutsu Kaisen in particular has sort of exploded in popularity since its anime took off, which is not uncommon. That happens a lot, that a series is like mildly popular, then gets animated, and then it goes crazy. Chainsaw Man, very similar sort of place. I imagine once the next season of Chainsaw Man comes out, that's what everybody will be talking about. And I'll be seeing reaction videos of people being like, no, this snowball fight's destroying my brain.
I'm glad you brought up Chainsaw Man because that's a very obvious point of comparison for me. I feel like I'm going to be returning to. But Jujutsu Kaisen, literal translation, sorcery battle. You can see why they left it untranslated. Not exactly the most scintillating title for a series.
Sorcery Fight is a dog shit name, which blows my mind that there's currently a series called Shadow Eliminators in Shonen Jump. For some reason, they were like, translate that one. But everyone knows that this is like dog shit that you'll never remember in 10 years.
Yeah, part of the reason I watched this is just because the way people have been talking about the recently animated arc is not the recent manga arc, but I just keep hearing phrases like the Shibuya incident throwing around as being important. People are saying, oh, it's like the next coming of the Chimera Ant arc from Hunter x Hunter, which is often like bandied about as like, one of the best arcs of all time. It's like an essential experience. And so in a way, I sat through a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen waiting for the Shibuya to happen, and it was a little bit of a struggle for me. The series gets off to kind of a slow start. It's very formulaic. The premise is just in a world where there are evil curses that threaten, modern Japan. There are some high school kids with powers who fight them, which is the premise of like a lot of manga. We could sit here and name the similarities to other series because there are a lot of them. They go to a special high school. There's a traitor among them who's working with the villains. This is a very My Hero Academia plot point. Turns out the hero has a secret connection to the villain things. I was naming examples of this. I was like, in Attack on Titan, Eren is a Titan. In Tokyo Ghoul, the guy's a ghoul. And Joe was like, in Bleach, Ichigo's a hollow. We just like we're going back and forth on this because it's like every series has this exact thing.
Shonen manga are sort of foundationally very trope filled. If you're familiar with the terms, there are key sort of points narratively within genre that they just rely on a lot. And if you've listened to Weekly Manga Recap at all, you know that Nick and I have like bemoaned Exorcist series, which it feels like Japan comes out with them very frequently, which is just like, hey, what if kids in Japan had to fight demons, ghosts, curses, whatever, fight something like that. And it feels like we get usually like 2 to 3 of them a year, and maybe one of them survives. So just know that for every Jujutsu Kaisen out there, there's like fucking 3 Shadow Eliminators, or God, I'd have to like go back and actually think about it. That's the big issue, is that most of these series are not memorable once they get going. But trust me when I say that there are an inordinate amount of these sorts of series that you just don't even see each year because they never make it past, running for like 4 months. Ayashimon was one of them.
There was the one that had a very repetitive name. It was like Doro or whatever.
Yeah, Doron, which was like, what if there are evil enemy ghosts in Japan and there's a school? Phantom Seer was the one I was trying to think of, which was just like, hey, what if there's a school with like evil ghosts, and this guy could see them and help fight against them. Our blood oath was like, what if they were vampires and had to fight against them? It's legit like a genre in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has this is the one they're yokai. This one they're curses. This one they're ghouls. This one they're shikigami. This one they're oni. But they all have essentially the same rules. They're like pure evil creatures. That you have to vanquish, and normal humans either don't know about them or can't see them or something. Anyway, it's okay if two things are similar. To bring it back to Hasbin Hotel, it's not an instant death sentence, but I found this series a little tedious up front. A lot of the fights, it's a very fight-based series, basically boiled down to someone being like, oh no, this person has a technique that's so powerful, how will I ever win? JK, I have a different technique that's better, and then they just win because they have a different technique. It's really unsatisfying. Comparing it to my favorite kind of current series, Chainsaw Man, or my classic JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where usually the fights come down to, observing something about your enemy's specialty and then using a logical weakness or exploiting some kind of flaw that follows naturally from the premise. That kind of stuff is very clever and satisfying to me. And this one is just people going like, you shoot me? Well, I have a bullet shield. Oh, you think the bullet shield's good? I have a bullet shield piercing spear. It's just like, playground stuff. That gets pretty annoying. Before I get to the Shibuya incident, do you want to add anything to that that first, I guess, the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yeah, so I never really got super into Jujutsu Kaisen. Famously, we didn't pick it up when we read it on weekly manga recap. Basically, what we'll do is read the first 3 chapters of a series, and then we'll decide at that point if we want to keep it into recap or not. And I think Jujutsu Kaisen in its first 3 chapters didn't do a lot. It felt like kind of a subpar Bleach ripoff. I think at the time, it was introduced, Bleach had just ended or was very close to ending or something like that. So it just didn't leave much of a mark. We didn't think about it. And then it, picked up. It was still running in Jump, a year or so later. And it was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a look at it right now and see what's going. And I still was like, this isn't necessarily for me, but other people really enjoy it. And I think that's great. That's how a lot of anime, and manga work is, you find what caters to you. The universe of Jujutsu Kaisen is one that is very complicated, and I'm so dim. I try not to talk down at myself right now. That's something I'm trying to actively avoid doing, but even I will admit, with a full confident brain, that Jujutsu Kaisen is just a very complicated concept of a series. There are a lot of terms that get thrown about that if you haven't memorized them eventually just become jargon that I cannot follow. People will be like, they use their reverse curse technique energy to nullify that attack, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. I don't know what a reverse curse thing is anymore. I just kind of nod my head and go along with it. And it's also a universe that is built upon the foundation of just broken characters. Famously, Gojo is an intensely undefeatable person. It's not like a sense of like, oh, this is like the strongest person in the world. They're like, no, this man is broken. In a metatextual way, he is too strong for this universe. And that is something that is difficult to comprehend. It's sort of something that My Hero Academia is worked towards. It's reached a point where the antagonist of the series has reached a point where everyone's like, this man's too strong to let exist anymore. This is like a danger to reality. But Gojo is just openly, as part of the text of the series, so strong that everyone wants to either eliminate him or control him.
Yeah, to answer the 2 things you just said, the first about how complicated the series is, it's not that it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm sure you break it down, it makes sense. It's just how often they have to stop everything to be like, okay, so you have to use cursed energy on a cursed tool to align your chakras, to do a black fash while you're expanding your domain. But if you don't have a barrier during your domain, you need a veil. And because a veil is, it's like on and on and on and on. It's just like so much shit that it just like kills the pacing for me. And like, it's a lot of that is just to set up, you're like, oh, you and I have to fight now, or like why my punch is stronger than your punch. And I just don't think it's necessary, that level of explanation.
It also falls into a similar thing with Bleach, not to pull it back to it, but Bleach, one of the main criticisms I had at the end of the series is Bleach was also a series where it was like, I reveal my Bankai with its unbeatable surefire kill technique. And then the other person's like, but what if I had a Bankai that was better. And then meanwhile, the main character of the series is a Bankai was like, what if I was fast? And that's it, which is very boring. And the similar thing happens in Jujutsu Kaisen. You're surrounded by characters who have very distinct, visually interesting techniques that like go across the gamut. And our lead character, Yuji's entire fighting style is like, what if I hit you hard? And it's one of those things that like, I accept it. I totally understand why that works for some people. My brain just tends to turn off when the protagonist isn't as interesting as the world they're surrounded in. So that's something that kind of works against it. And I want to say this all with the foreknowledge or the preface, I guess, of saying I do like Jujutsu Kaisen. I found parts of it that do work for me. And I think the part of it I enjoy the most is that I want to get the name right. Akutami Sensei is really, really authentic in their work. Like, I could tell this means a lot to them, and this series means a lot to them, and I don't think they're just writing bullshit. Like, I do think in their mind all of this makes sense and is logical. I can't say that about some other long-running shonen series. I feel like eventually they were just like, I don't know, what if actually everything's about aliens?
Yeah, I'm also winding up. I'm building up to the reveal that I do like it as well. So
yeah, I want to preface it because I know some people get prickly if you come at their favorite series, and I say that there's parts of the series that I have come to absolutely enjoy, but I also fully and readily admit, like, I'm following this series as it comes out weekly at this point. I won't spoil anything, but there are many chapters where I just nod my head along. Like, I'm just like, sure, okay, I don't get this. I think I'm going to pick up enough of a gist to, like, process it afterwards. But I need to be very clear, I am not getting this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing about this is going to seem like a weird swerve, but the thing about the DC Comics films that never worked for me is how powerful all the heroes are. Like, Superman is just basically invincible. The Flash can just go through time at will. Like, they're all just gods. They're unstoppable, and that makes the stakes low or very artificial. And this series, where one of the main characters, like you said, his ability is like, I can kill anyone and no one can hurt me, is like, it should do the same thing. And like, the villain's ability is like, I can erase entire countries at will, essentially. Like, everyone's so uber powerful, it shouldn't work, and yet it does for a couple different reasons. One, I will say, as they get to the Shibuya incident, the quality of the animation jumps tremendously.
Yes, the series exploded in popularity after season 1, so I imagine they got a much bigger budget for animation this time around.
Yeah, it went from like a normal looking shonen show where I was like, yeah, these are normal, production values for a thing where Japanese high schoolers try to punch each other, which is fine, to suddenly being like, oh shit, oh gosh, what's going on? What is this? What are you even trying to show me? It's really cool. So that's like the first thing, kind of a caveman brain critique, but no, it just looks a lot better suddenly. And another is that the Shibuya incident, which is just a part where the villains attack the part of Tokyo that is Shibuya. I don't know how else to say that. It's a prefecture, I guess. That is essentially like 15 uninterrupted hours of fights. It is like they drop all pretense of like the school. There's no more investigation stuff. Like, they're not learning urban legends about like suicide bridges or like, any of that stuff. Like, they just beat ass.
The plot starts at that point. Shibuya, by the way, is a ward.
Okay.
So it starts the narrative. Yeah. Jujutsu Kaisen could have been mistaken as your traditional everyday, shonen battle manga where there's, the quirky 3-person character cast of like the idiot, the angsty one, the girl, and they team around with like their cool enigmatic sensei. And then the Shibuya incident starts and you're like, oh, now I see why this is popular. This is a completely different fucking jam than any of this shit. Like, if this happened in My Hero Academia, people would be sobbing in the streets.
Yeah. I mean, when it opens up, like, the premise of the show, you're like, oh, there's this bad guy called Sukuna, and he has 20 fingers, and you got to eat them. I was like, oh, this is going to be an Inuyasha, where every episode they have to find another shard of the Shikon jewel. I was like, okay, that's fine. No. Fuck. They jettison that. He eats like 15 fingers in one episode during Shibuya. they're just like, we're not doing that anymore. And I was like, holy shit, that's so cool. I mean, Joa compared it to the Red Wedding. It's just like when you realize no one is safe and everything's on the table. I'm a fucking mark, but I was like, it worked for me. I was like, oh shit, now like I don't know what's gonna happen, and it's really exciting to me. And everyone starts acting on their motivations. It's not just like, I'm evil and I want to kill people I mean, some people are just evil, but like people are like trying to accomplish things and taking logical steps to achieve those goals, which you'd be surprised how few series that applies to. Often people are just kind of doing shit for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Shibuya incident arc is that I think that because of how narratively surprised it is and how much of the status quo it shakes up and how consequential it feels, which is not a word tend to be bandied around in shonen manga, it will go down in history as one of the biggest shonen arcs of all time. I feel like this is going to be famous on the same level that people like fondly talk about like the Chunin exams and the Soul Society arc and stuff like that, where people are just like, oh wow, this was like crazy and awesome, but so much more consequential than like any of those, you know, like imagine if Soul Society, but like 4 main cast members are in like, critical condition at the end of it, and maybe you'll never see them again or something. It's crazy. You're like, holy shit, this doesn't like cut corners. It is a lot of fights, but it makes sense. It's one of those series or those arcs that like the more you think about it, the more intense it gets when you realize there are 2 major character deaths that someone witnesses, and then you stop and you think about it, and you're like, he witnessed those 2 major character deaths in the span of about 5 minutes. Like, he didn't even get a chance to breathe from one, and then he walked straight into the other one. Like, it's insane to think about.
Yeah, it's like if blowing up Alderaan and Luke, I Am Your Father happened in back-to-back scenes.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that, again, there are levels that I recognize that I'm like, I will not enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen on the same level that Jujutsu Kaisen fans, I think, enjoy the series. Like, I can fully and completely admit that, and I'm okay with that. But the Shibuya incident is definitely where I started to feel like I paid more attention to the series, because I was like, this has hooked me. I feel like the series is starting to like narrate its own future a lot more. It is creating a pace. It is creating a flavor that is different from everything else. And, you know, some of the stereotypical like elements that exist early on is kind of a byproduct of the way manga is created, especially if you come from the magazine Weekly Shonen Jump, which is the biggest magazine for shonen manga. You only get so long to kind of sell your series before you run the risk of cancellation. So a lot of series have to do kind of obnoxious things up front to hide their better plots later on when they actually have secured their place in the magazine. So a lot of that is sort of this mixed thing where series will like very quickly be like, oh, wait, hold on, I have to go back on this decision, or I have to, you know, abruptly turn face because, you know, our numbers aren't looking so good.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned having front loading some bad stuff like Undead Unluck did that very noticeably, as you discussed on your show. Chainsaw Man, I also feel like was kind of repellent for a lot of people at the beginning, and that's the series I was comparing this in my mind often when I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen. In the first season, I just kept thinking, God, I wish this was Chainsaw Man. please, I wish I want to watch Chainsaw Man. But they're the same studio, Mappa, animated both of these series, and I like the way Chainsaw looks more. I like the characters more. I joked to you when I was about to start Shibuya, I was like, I hope all my favorite characters are going to make it. And you said like, oh, who are your favorite characters? Because I mean, you wanted to have the joy of my soul being crushed, you know? And I realized I just don't like any of the characters that much. They're fine, but like, I'm not attached to them like the way I am like Denji or whatever. And it's like not necessarily fair. They can be different series, but like, I'm never going to love Jujutsu Kaisen the way I love Chainsaw Man, unfortunately. But I did get to a point where I at least like Jujutsu Kaisen and I where it is right now. So I could say more, but that's basically where I'm at. It was like I had to suffer through some pretty mediocre shonen nonsense to get to something that was like genuinely really cool and well made.
Yeah, and I watched the last 3 episodes. You guys finished Jujutsu Kaisen while you were here at my place, so I got to watch a couple of those episodes. It was nice getting to see things animated. I've seen a large portion of the Jujutsu Kaisen anime solely through TikTok reactions, basically, where somebody's like, "Oh, I hope everything's going okay for this character." No, it's not, and you get all the big reactions. And so I saw a lot of the series off of that, but. It was enjoyable to see the end of that arc and to see how things move. I think it's very interesting. They are moving right into the culling game. That's the next arc, which makes sense. It's the next arc in the manga as well. But it is worth noting that the culling game is still happening. So I'm surprised they didn't at least put a part 1 in front of it, but maybe they realize it's just easier to say that at the end of the season, culling game part 2 next season or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not current on the manga, so I don't know what any of those words mean, but I probably will watch it. The last thing I want to say about Jujutsu Kaisen is during the Shibuya arc, there's a part where a major villain reveals something. It's like, it actually honestly gets pretty soap opera. A bunch of people reveal they're related to other people in a way that normally I would laugh if I had just seen a bunch of people horribly mutilated. And then there's a brief flashback to something I'd never seen before, and I had to Google, like, what was that? And it was like, oh, surely you remember this from Jujutsu Kaisen, the movie. Like, motherfucker. So I did have to go back. We watched, it's called Jujutsu Kaisen 0. And apparently, this is very interesting for me to learn. This wasn't written later as a prequel to fill in a gap. This was written first.
Yeah, this was the original, like, one shot of Jujutsu Kaisen, I believe. Or not one shot, but, like, its original sort of intro.
Yeah, Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical School. It was a different series in the same world that I guess didn't take off, but then they bring this character back. It's just a fascinating situation where he's like, I want to do a series about curses and about a high school boy who learns about curses. And I'm going to make him kind of a bullied loser. And then they're like, oh, that was good, but do you have anything else for us? And they're like, yeah, I have a series about a high school boy who learns about curses and decides to fight them, but he's a fucking boss. He's a fucking yoked, I think in the first episode they mentioned he like beats the world record sprinting record by like 10 seconds or something. He's just like a super uber jock or something, and like that's the series that takes off. I don't know what that says about anything. I just think it's very funny. He did the same thing twice with basically pretty white bread protagonist, but one was just way more popular, and it's not the loser. I don't know what that means.
Worth noting, Akutami Sensei is unknown in their gender. So I do want to be clarified about that. No one knows. They haven't revealed their identity or anything like that, so no one actually knows.
Interesting.
About them. They dress like Mechamaru, I believe, when they have had to appear on camera and things like that.
Oh my god!
Like a voice filter.
This is a fucking Nier situation. What is?
It is very similar to
Yoko
Taro and the meal head or whatever the fuck you would call it.
Emil. Yeah, I didn't know that at all. That's so funny. Didn't the person who made Beastars also wasn't known for a while, and then eventually it came out that it was like the daughter of a different mangaka. I'm only vaguely aware of manga drama.
Very likely things of that nature. There's also different things of like genders maybe not being known. And people go through obviously their own self-discoveries and things of that nature as well.
Yeah. I just looked it up. The woman who wrote Beastars, her like identity and gender weren't known. And eventually it was revealed she's the daughter of the creator of Baki the Grappler, a famous martial arts series. And apparently she like got her start like drawing like a naughty doujinshi of her dad's work, which is awesome. I don't know how he got here. I just think these things are fascinating. But
they are nifty. What was I gonna say? Had something completely gone.
Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Why isn't it part of the series? I guess because Mugen Train made $100 billion billion, so now anime is partly movies now.
But then they animated Mugen Train. Like, it's part, if you watch Demon Slayer, you will see Infinity Train arc. It won't like you don't have to stop to watch a movie. Jujutsu Kaisen just exists in this weird space where there is like a super consequential piece of media that you need to consume at some point, and someone has to tell you like, oh hey, somewhere around the hidden inventories flashback arc, you should then also read this series because it informs a lot.
Yeah, no, it's super critical. It is simply not skippable, even though it's actually a movie of a different series. Very weird.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's talk about other movies, though. Let's start with something that's bad and unfortunately not that good, which is Austin, are you ready to read the real Agent Argylle?
Oh, from the twisted mind of Matthew Vaughn, we got this fucking mind-bending epic odyssey into basically Austin Powers, but slightly more serious.
I want to preface by saying I kind of like Matthew Vaughn. I really like the first Kick-Ass movie a lot. I liked X-Men First Class quite a bit. And although I didn't love Kingsman, like I appreciated some aspects of it. So like I was able to be like, I kind of like this guy, and particularly how he does action. So I didn't have as much of like almost like vomiting reaction that most people had when they saw the From the Twisted Mind to Matthew Vaughn. You're like, I don't know what's so twisted about this guy. He's been mostly adapting things.
Yeah, his twisted mind of making comic books into movies. I will say I did like Layer Cake a lot. That was the thing that kind of catapulted Daniel Craig into the Bond role, and I did like the first Kingsman. Leon Thomas and I famously fought about this on a podcast somewhere, where he thought it was like a really unfunny, gross movie, and I was like, no, it's kind of fun. Like he rails the princess in the butt at the end. Everyone loves that. And he was just like, you're a freak, you're a sicko.
You're a scumbag. One day you're gonna fight with your best friend over a hotel anime.
Yeah.
I just want you to know the curse I placed on you.
But I did think there was diminishing returns in the Kingsman movies. It's hard to make an action comedy that is both very funny and has genuinely good action. It's lightning in a bottle, and he has had trouble recapturing it. So I think the movies have been less funny and less exciting, and Argylle continues that tradition. It's like putting it out there. Not a great triumph.
Yeah, unfortunately, this was not good. I'll be very clear. So I ended up giving this movie a 2-star. I came very close to giving it a 3-star because there are moments that I actually kind of like.
The AI Beatles song, of course, you love.
No, God. All right, we're going to start with this. So we never really, I think, talked about it on this show, but I've talked about it to you and to friends of ours. There is a song called Now and Then. It is bandied about as the last Beatles song. Basically, I think Yoko sent Paul a portion of like a demo recording that John Lennon had done for a song, but because John Lennon had recorded his audio and like the piano on the same track, there was no way to separate the two until the invention of AI, Austin. And because of that, they have been able to separate the audio track using computers and thus allowed the Beatles to have one final song. However, so much of the rest of the song is also created with AI, and there's also a horrifying music video where they decided to have the two remaining Beatles members kind of dance around a studio with CGI AI created versions of the Dead and just younger versions of all the Beatles. It's so unnerving and weird. It's legitimately like revolting to look at. If you didn't like when they briefly had Egon Spangler show up at the end of that one Ghostbusters movie, then absolutely do not watch this trailer because it's like 1,000 times more grotesque.
Yeah, I hated that in Ghostbusters, and I hate it in this music video. It's ghoulish, it's grotesque. I'm not a religious person, but honestly, if there's such a thing as ghosts, someone needs to be haunted about this. It's fucked up. The song itself is fine, but
it's very forgettable. But what I don't know who paid a bunch for it, but someone paid for the rights for this song, and they're like, I'm getting my goddamn money's worth because they play this song like 6 or 7 times throughout this movie. Sometimes it's not even the full song. Sometimes they just take the motifs as though it was a fucking theme song. And I'm like, I cannot imagine something more revolting in the world than John Lennon's last creative works being used as the theme song for this shitty spy movie.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. It's not respectful. But if you've seen the trailer, as everyone in the world has, it's a movie about a writer who's suddenly being pursued by evil spies because her writing has predicted real spy stuff, and she goes on the run with Sam Rockwell. She keeps picturing Sam Rockwell as Henry Cavill, who's the more stereotypical like hunk with big muscles and the nice suits and everything, which is very funny to me because I think Sam Rockwell is 10,000 times hotter than Henry Cavill, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, well, it's very like idealized in that way because she's writing these books with a hunky male lead, and it's it's romantic in that way, even though it is meant to sort of imply through the text that John Cena and Henry Cavill in their books are an item, which I think is very interesting. But they're cowards and they don't ever have them kiss or anything cool. So some real embarrassing shit there, fellas.
Yeah, and then they basically get caught up in it's like the Man Who Knew Too Little, Caper, Spies Like Us, one of those kind of movies. But she has a cat in a backpack, so that's kind of a slapstick touch that we all like. And then there's some plot twists about the real Agent Argylle. If you've once again seen the trailer, that has been kind of MK Ultra'd into all of our minds. I see a lot of people talking about how much they hated that trailer, but I tried to guess who the real Agent Argylle was before we saw it, and unfortunately I was wrong, so I'm gonna eat crow. I know I brag when I'm right, so it's only fair that I admit I did not see that twist coming before we got there. I did get it before it was revealed, but just being honest.
Yeah, I mean, so in the trailer, which famously has been playing in front of movies since, I think, September. I want to say I added this to my watch list when I saw the trailer the first time in front of The Creator, which I think was like an October movie, late September, early October movie. So it's been running in front of movies for a while now, for about 5 months. It feels like every movie has had it. It has always been the same trailer. This is also a movie produced by Apple Studios, Apple Plus, basically to go on their app. And then at some point they were like, oh, hey, this is actually maybe better than we thought. Let's release it to theaters. It'll get, a regular box office, and then it can go to our service. But did not ever get a second trailer, which is usually a very bad sign about a movie, that they're not very confident in it. And the big thing about the trailer is it's full of people like, hey, Bryce Dallas Howard and Sam Rockwell, but also Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, Henry Cavill, Dua Lipa, John Cena. They didn't even have to show us that Samuel L. Jackson is also in the movie. That's how jam-packed this cast is. And one of the defining lines of the trailer is, it's now time for you to meet the real Agent Argylle. So in everyone's minds, they're like, what huge star are they going to get to reveal is the real Agent Argylle behind all this? And of course, the answer is deeply unsatisfying.
Yeah, there's no point in ruining it here. I feel like if I had something really interesting to say about the twist, maybe it'd be worth spoiling, but it's not, because it's one of just a number of plot twists they throw at you. They're all pretty uninteresting. Like, I've seen them done other places. They're kind of hacky to begin with. The film kind of lives or dies by its comedy and its action, and there are like 2 or so action set pieces that are fine. Yeah.
I think that Matthew Vaughn is very good at directing and creating compelling hand-to-hand stuff. But obviously he was handed what feels like a pretty big budget here, and does not know how to necessarily utilize it. There is like a scene at the start of the movie that is meant to be like kind of a racing action set piece with cars, and it's comically bad, like embarrassingly bad. Like Fast X was like high art in comparison to this. I was like, I don't think this man has ever seen how a car is like ridden in his life. Like, he's never seen a car in real life or something. Like, it was like truly like bad to look at. It was just very uninspired gibberish, essentially.
The action scene in the text of the book, in the story within a story, was so bad I thought it was an intentional choice to show like the artificiality of the Henry Cavill's vision. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like
Yeah.
the story Argylle versus the real one. But no, that's just what some of the movie looks like. It's just bad and artificial.
Yeah, that's just how it is. There are visuals fight scenes that are cool. I don't want to get into it, but there's like a smoke fight that was like something that I was like, okay, like I'm not in love with this. Again, there's too much like CGI within this for me to be completely invested, but I do like that you are visually trying to create something that is kind of interesting. I can get behind it. And the train fight that you see from the trailers, I thought was really cool. There's like an element that comes in with the bathroom door, like they get kind of like opens and closes and the perspective shifting. And I was like, this is something that's intriguing. Again, I'm not gonna like lose my mind. This is no diggity scene from Mutant Mayhem or anything like that. But I was like, this is good. Like I am entertained. I was perfectly happy to give this movie a 3 stars if it had kept up most of that. But unfortunately, it doesn't, and the cat disappears for a pretty huge chunk of the movie, which is a crime in my mind. So I really felt at that point that the movie dipped in quality. The who is the real Agent Argylle twist was really boring and stupid. At that point, I kind of felt like a lot of my enjoyment of the movie deflated, and the last 15 minutes just dragged on. Like it almost felt like somebody was like, oh, we have to hit a time crunch. What if there's one more extra obstacle to overcome after everything's kind of been resolved and completed? And it was just kind of boring. It also has an awful conclusion that you're meant to care about a character you've basically never seen or been invested with in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, people have been using, I think this was written by AI as an insult for movies recently. And I want to say this is the least written by AI movie I've seen in a long time. It has the greasy fingerprints all over it of a very real human who is trying every trick from their screenwriting class. You have to do the planting and the payoff. It's all very ham-handed. You can see it coming from a mile away. All the dialogue is like Marvel level quips. It's all very like going through the motions from, I don't know if you've ever read the classic book Save the Cat about screenwriting. It feels like, baby's first script in some ways. That came off meaner than maybe I meant it. It's not like a hateful movie or anything, but I am chasing the high of the Freebird church fight from the first Kingsman. And I think Matthew is too. And I think he just doesn't have that sauce in him right now. He doesn't have that dog in him no more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to phrase it. There is no scene that's going to be like the Kingsman church scene. There is no jetpack song from the first Kick-Ass. There is none of this sort of stuff where you're just like, oh, like this is like great and compelling. Everything in it is just kind of fine. This movie relies a lot on just having a bunch of stars in it, and I'll be honest, I love all the people in this movie to a certain degree, but none of these are also like great stars in different ways. Like Bryan Cranston is an incredible actor, but here it's just like, what if he was a bad guy? And like maybe you get a little Malcolm in the Middle kind of like goofiness from him here and there, but like, this is not a deep character with layers you're going to be examining and thinking about for a while. This is no Bond or anything like that. This is just spy stuff, which worked when the premise was like, oh, what if a cat lady had to survive in a spy thriller, which is maybe enough to do a movie off of. But as I said, they eventually remove the cat stuff and they change aspects of Bryce Dallas Howard's character to the point where she's not really that anymore, and it just devolves into like something that's just mush.
Yeah, it becomes a kind of generic action movie with like quips and stuff. I like Bryan Cranston as well. He is like one step away from doing a Dr. Evil thing where, it's just like, oh, we're here to make fun of spy movies. So like I have a signature weapon and I'm going to kill my henchmen for their failure. He's just like not full on parody, but like getting pretty close to the line. And at that point, I would prefer if we just got Michael Myers back in the building, see what he's got in the chamber. I don't know what he's been up to. Pentaveret, I guess. I don't know. Just bring back lots of vagina or whatever the fuck. Let's not pretend we're doing a real movie.
Yeah. I mean that is where it goes. But whereas this movie was bad and honestly very forgettable, I really want to talk about what may be my favorite theater experience of all time. One of the best movies I've ever seen, solely not because of the movie whatsoever, but simply because of the circumstances around it. That is, of course, the major motion picture Founders Day. A movie so good, I can't even find it on Wikipedia right now.
Yeah, this is the climax of the episode. This is our last. We can't top this, so we have to go out here. Genuinely one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but I've rarely laughed so hard. I was stone sober, right? I was going to say, like, this was like the Meg when I took too many edibles and had a blast. But no, this was just raw. I was raw dogging this movie, and I could not believe what I was seeing. It is a truly special experience. I'm glad we got to share it together. I had seen this movie was in theaters a while ago. I was like, oh, I'll probably just go see it. It's a low budget horror movie, in the style of Thanksgiving or Black Christmas, where it's like centered around a holiday. It's, in
Election Day.
Yeah, ostensibly about the founding of this small town, but also there's a political election. Who cares? And then it left theaters in Gainesville like immediately. I was like, oh, I missed it. Whatever. Who cares? It'll probably be on Shudder or something. But then I saw it was in Harrisburg, and I was like, Quinn, I know you hate horror movies, but I think this is going to suck too badly to be scary. Will you be brave for me? And I'm so glad you are.
I was so much of the mindset. I was like, I love my friends so much. I don't get to spend much time with them. Of course, I'll go suck up seeing this schlocky slasher movie, thinking nothing of it, thinking this is something. And I was like, maybe I should have grabbed a snack to entertain myself, because I'm definitely not going to vibe with this movie. And it took maybe like 10 minutes before I was like, I love how fucking bad this movie is. Every part of this, every decision they're doing is so ostensibly the wrong one. And I'm so here for it. It took maybe a half hour before our theater just turned into a live action rip tracks of this movie.
Yeah, there was no one else there, to be clear. We weren't being rude. We were the only humans on God's earth experiencing Founders Day.
And I want to also be very clear. Sometimes we'll go to see movies when like most normal people are like working. This was like 12 a.m. on a Saturday. This was like kind of a decent time for most people to watch movies. And still no one had an interest in seeing this one. Not even like a young couple who was mostly there to make out or something.
No, it was just us and Eric Blomquist, his lifelong passion. This movie starts with directed by Eric Blomquist, written by Eric Blomquist, produced by Eric Blomquist, an Eric Blomquist joint. I was like, damn, this dude's had this in his heart for a long time. This is a passion project. I want him to bare his soul to us. I'm surprised he's not starring in it. And then in the end credits, we
find out he's one of the main characters.
Fucking hell yeah, Eric. Do your thing. Yeah.
So let's talk about this movie a little bit, and let's get one of the big things off the top, is that this is a movie that is based around the idea that, like, hey, there's a small New England town and they get way too passionate about their elections. It's so intense. This killer is targeting it for a reason. There must be like some political thing they are trying to say. But before we can even get to that, we have to see that there are two campaigns going on.
This is the most important political contest of our lives. This is what everything comes down to. Left and right, red and blue, the two sides.
Yeah, and there's Gladwell, who is the incumbent, and Faulkner, and their campaigns, of course, centered around the ever-present, the sort of ubiquitous ideals politically of consistency and new ideas. Consistency for what? New ideas about what? Who knows? Those are not to delve into. Those are the sole premises of which both parties are running.
Quinn, when I go to the polls, the only thing I'm thinking about is whether there are new ideas or consistency.
I was going to say, I go to the poll and I'm like, too many new ideas in this poll. I'm voting consistency down the ballot.
Yeah, I mean, so much of our history has been shaped by this question. When you have the assassination of John F. Kennedy, who had too many new ideas, or you had 9/11, which is to stop us from having consistency. You really realize that every choice you make is about these two options.
It's so funny because obviously, like, there was a discussion had at some point. I guess Eric Blomquist had it with himself. He wrote the thing. and then directed it. But he must have had some idea. He was like, well, I don't want to like politically identify either one of these candidates. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, well, this is the conservative and this is the liberal or anything like that. But like, the movie is also about the intensity of like political discourse. So it has to be as vague as possible. It has to be as agnostic as possible between like a political identity. So when like we joke about the idea that these candidates boil themselves down to consistency and new ideas, this is not a joke. This is as far as the movie allows themselves to identify either of these politicians. It's Gladwell, a candidate for consistency, and Faulkner, he brings new ideas.
And there's something to be said about the tone of this movie, right? Because I know no one listening has seen it, so it's hard to convey.
Yes.
But this is a movie which is so silly, but there's so much plausible deniability here about like whether or not they had a real point. There's like a bunch of people talking like in very reverent tones about the political stuff going on, and it's so silly. But it's not Scream. You know, it's like not doing the thing where you turn to the camera and go like, a masked killer on election day. How lol random. Like everyone in the movie thinks they are doing something, and it makes it 10,000 times funnier.
There is meant to be a voice of reason. There is the local high school history teacher. I guess they only have one because everyone knows them. But he is meant to be our voice of reason as he talks about this. But again, they can't have him identify politically in either way. So whereas the movie falls into this line of like both sides are kind of bad, he is there to present the third, equally as agnostic other concept of politics, which is just like, do them. There is no more identifying thing. I don't really know where he stands on consistency v new ideas. He is just the third option that we should also be considering to some degree.
Yeah, he's seen both sides, realized they're both, if you think about it, they're kind of on opposite sides of a horseshoe. And so he has a third way, which is really a big brain move no one's considered before.
What if, Austin, instead of consistency and new ideas, you did a third thing?
What if you had consistent new ideas, huh?
Whoa! That would be a fourth thing, where that's not what he's about. He doesn't stand for that.
But this is all the backdrop for like a slasher movie, right? There's a guy with a mask on, he's killing teenagers. Or is it? Is that what's going on? Because a lot of this movie is just kind of people wandering around, getting into weird conversations. There is a fucking transcendental musical montage in the middle of this film that you would think it was out of like Mystic River or fucking something. I was gobsmacked. I was like, surely someone's gonna like fucking fart or something to like undercut what they're doing here. But it never happened, which is so weird. This fucking movie does not have a Wikipedia page. You're right. Holy shit.
I was truly trying to find a Wikipedia page to remember a couple characters' names, and I was like, no, I'm just finding actual Founders Day pages.
Bananas.
We need to talk, like, so we've given you the basis, which is like this movie is meant to be political, but it's hilariously unpolitical in like a way that's like deeply distracting. Like you almost think this is
Hilarious.
a fake town where people are insane and only can process the ideas of new ideas and consistency. There's like a radio fight that happens between the two sides, and again, they can't identify either side. So it's just people being like, look, Mayor Gladwell has been in here and she's been consistent. And what should we care about if not consistency? And then like their opponent will come on and be like, she doesn't have new ideas. Like, we need new ideas to lead this town. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
This entire cast is completely unknowns, except for one lady I recognize. Did you recognize anyone but Catherine Curtin, who I've seen in Hot Fuzz? I think she's in.
You pointed her out to me, and I recognized her from that, and then looked her up later, and I also had seen her in Werewolves Within, which is weirdly a video game movie.
Yeah, a Ubisoft joint. Actually, I did enjoy.
But yeah, like I was talking to my sister about this. She's like, who's in it? And I was like, nobody. Which is weird. But like, I thought for a while, I was like, this professor seems like an older established actor. Surely I must have seen them in something. And then like looking through it, I was like, no, I've never heard of William Russ before.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Catherine Curtin was also in Stranger Things, probably where the audience may have seen her. She's been in some stuff. She is a perfectly fine actor. She's asked to do some silly stuff in this, including she has a running joke where she's always eating candy. And there's one scene where she doesn't have candy, and I was like, oh my God, it's her evil twin. There's no other explanation. This is so important to her character. They wouldn't just abandon it now.
Yeah, you have to understand, every scene she's in, she's offering people gumballs or pulling out a lollipop. So, like, it's to the point where you're like, okay, well, this is the gimmick. So when the scene happens and she doesn't have any candy at all, you're like, am I not meant to assume something is up about this?
Yeah.
This movie is hilariously incompetent. Like, I don't want to come down hard on too much of this.
No, because we had the best time of our lives, because he's changed us. Blomquist has fundamentally altered us as people. We're thankful.
I'm fully a now like complete human. But this is one of those movies. I think I said it to you at some point where I was like, this is a movie that lets you know anybody can make films. Like, truly, it's not that hard, because like, this is a movie that shows up on the big screen. Like, this got play in movie theaters, and so many of the scenes are just people framed in a shot poorly. That's not particularly interesting or captivating. People talking around in a circle. There's a scene of two characters talking, and like there's cars driving in the road.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
And like, that's fine. You couldn't pay to close off the road, but the road is loud enough it picks up on the mic. So like, as like a tow truck drives by, I sat there, I was like, is this tow truck supposed to be important? Why am I hearing it over the conversation that's happening?
You really take modern sound design for granted in movies because people have gotten so good at it. But if you've seen like, giallo movies from like the 70s or like weirdly dubbed, Chinese action films or whatever, where the sound's fucked up, you'll know like that something's wrong immediately. And this is a movie where, they mic'd up a highway for some reason, or maybe added it in post. I don't know why. You're just like, oh shit,
idea.
Making movies is hard.
It's so funny, though. I need to talk about my favorite person from the movie, though, who is, I guess, our lead character's father. I don't even remember his name.
Oh my God, the Coco Man.
I need to start with one thing, which is there's two characters. There's Allison, whose girlfriend, Maggie, I want to say, is killed at the very start of the movie. Or
Melissa, you motherfucker.
Yeah, it's something with an M. That's all I knew. She is killed very early on, and then Melissa's little brother, Adam, goes to their house and is like, hey, can I see Allison? And the dad is the one who answers the door. And he looks at him and he's like, I don't know, Adam. I mean, it just doesn't feel like now's the right... What are you saying? Get on in here. And like, I need to be very clear. I maybe put too much inflection in my reading of it. It's such a confusing thing where I was like, I think he's trying to be like a jokester. But was there only one roll of tape that day? And they were like, oops, well, that's the only tape we have. I guess we use it. It was mind-boggling. You're almost like, was the line supposed to just be like, sure, Adam, you're part of the family? And the actor decided to like ad-lib it at first, and then like in the last moment, he's like, oh wait, no, I should probably do this straight or something like that. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad impulse, right? To give a character a little texture for them to be a little silly. But like his sister was just murdered with a hammer. And why are you joking with him? What is the tone here?
Yeah, what are you going for?
It's so bizarre. But yeah,
and then there's a moment, of course, where Allison is upstairs. Their dad tries to comfort her. And it's like, hey, Allison, you need anything? You want like some hot cocoa? Maybe some hot cocoa. We could get marshmallow. And you're like, this man bought 40 pounds of hot cocoa mix and is desperate to get rid of it before it gets bad. Like, why did you include him saying cocoa twice?
Literally, this is the point when we realized we were doing a riff tracks, because for like the next 20 minutes, every time a conversation kind of got to a weird lull, one of us would pretend to be the dad and be like, maybe we could go for some cocoa? You want to have a little cocoa right now?
I know some teenagers just died, but why don't we all grab some cocoa from my house and talk this through?
Yeah, they activated the Mystery Science Theater neuron in our brains, and we were like, this is a great running gag. The fucking cocoa dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, the killer is a person wearing kind of a mask that looks like an old-timey guy, and he has a mallet. or like a gavel as like a judge.
Whoa! Let's not hide. It is a mallet with a knife at the end.
Well, this is where I was going. Where it's like, okay, a mallet is kind of a signature weapon, a little gavel. Like I haven't seen that. It's no Freddy Krueger's claws, but it's something. And then it's revealed it has a custom like switchblade knife at the bottom, which feels like putting a hat on a hat, but also raises the question of who made that. That's not something you can get at the fucking grocery store. Like, why is that even a thing? It feels like they realized that judges' gavels are really light, and beating someone to death with them would be really hard.
Yeah, like you can't go on to Amazon and type judge gavel parentheses knife inside. Question mark. It's not going to come up with anything.
Sure. But we're getting so excited about these scenes. I just want to say the movie starts, like I said, it's like a Blomquist joint by Mr. Blomquist, presented by Blomquist Industries, a subsidiary of Blomquist Incorporated. But then the first scene is the politician yelling at his daughter, and he's like, "You're not going to go anywhere dressed like a fucking whore. You're freaking everyone out with your this phase you're going through." And then she walks out of the house, and you see she's dressed totally normally. She doesn't look weird at all. I thought she was gonna be like fully like fucking gothed out or something, but no.
Yeah, she happens to have like 4 layers of clothes on and just looks like a normal person would be going out. Like her hair's pretty normal. Like there's nothing about this that's insane.
That was such a weird start. But then at the end of the scene, as she's going to leave, he tries to get her to stay by saying, "I baked some cookies," but his line reading is so inexplicable. I can't do it justice. He's like, "I made some cookies." I don't know why.
Every actor in this is giving something. It's completely different. There's one point where a character has to discover that one of their children is dead.
Yes.
And the way it is framed is like through a dumpster looking up at them, but they couldn't, I guess, get the sky to look right, so they put a green screen behind her so they could put clouds above her, and then they just have her scream wildly into this camera for too long, and you're like, what was the point of this?
Yeah, that lady who plays the mayor is really giving 120%. She has a scene where she gives a really rowdy speech that, with a little tweaking could have been a classic bit, like from Plan 9 from Outer Space or something. I don't know. Amy Hargreaves is this actress.
Oh my God.
I've seen her in good movies. She was in Blue Ruin. I just looked it up. She's fine. She's not like, this isn't like, oh, they found some like loser who doesn't know what they're doing and that's why it looks bad and weird. Like, it's just uncanny. It's like they found like people who do like YouTube sketches.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I turned to you and I said, "This is Channel Awesome Core."
Yeah, like you said that this was very close to a Channel Awesome movie, and it is. Like it is very much like one person decided to kind of run this. Mr. Bloomquist himself was like, "I've got a vision. I'm gonna handle everything. You guys just read the lines I've written." And like none of them had like inflection or tone or anything, so all the actors are just guessing how they're supposed to be. That scene you're talking about, she gives a speech and it's supposed to start motivating this crowd, and then they're like, "Well, politicians are evil." So at the last minute, instead of uniting everybody, she starts to turn into a political ad, and she's like, "And you know what this town needs more than anything is consistency. And who is a candidate more consistent than me?" And there's like a guy who pops in who's like, "I didn't vote for consistency." And it's just so funny. The movie can't escape this stupid premise.
It's so stupid. Yeah, it's very much like, Doug Walker is like, "Yeah, put on this costume because, Ghostbusters." And you're like, what does Ghostbusters have to do with anything? That's not a joke. Oh, fuck.
Oh my God. There's like a scene early on where a character gets hooked to a bridge by like the loop in her belt buckle and like the struggle she has to give to be like, "Oh, if only I could free myself from this." And I'm just like, it's a belt loop. I've torn them just walking through doorways before accidentally. Like, you can't make this much drama out of this.
Yeah, and this is ostensibly a horror movie, so you're asking like, where are the kills, right? And there are some, but like someone using a tiny ass gavel is not not very threatening. You feel like pretty much anyone could square up on this
Yeah.
killer at any time, and they just don't for some reason. It's like not scary even a little bit ever. So like it's not even barely worth talking about in that sense. Like at the end, they try to have go.
I forgot about the one girl because, of course, you have to get like there's two people who are just like dirt bags, like they suck, so you know they're gonna die at some point during the movie, and they kill the guy, but the girl runs away. However, they were like mid coitus, so her shirt is off, so she's like trying to run away, but she's still wearing a bra, but she's like trying to hide that fact, and she runs into a school gymnasium trying to escape this person who just killed her boyfriend and is going to kill her, and she runs up to into a door that says like warning alarm will sound, and she's like, I can't go through there, and hides under the bleachers instead. And you're like, what, did you not want to make a noise? Like, I understand the killer will know where you're at, but you're escaping them. Don't you want the cops to get called?
That whole sequence, we were screaming in the theater because it starts with these two 30-year-olds playing high school being so fucking weird to each other. Like they won't stop making out in every scene. And the teacher is like, hey, you two are in detention. And they're like, whatever, old bag. Fuck you. Like he's just like yelling at him. He literally
screams, let's fuck on that old man's desk.
Yes, let's fuck on his old man's desk. Which is, I mean, incredible in itself. But then we just saw a scene where he threw a punch at a cop in public for no reason, real psycho behavior. So this guy's just like weirdly unhinged, but then suddenly they're trying to have sex and he can't get his pants off. It's like obvious comedy, right? Like I'm not saying there's no intentional jokes. Obviously, it's over the top, but it's just wildly swinging back from like supposed to be horror to supposed to be funny, not good at anything. And then the murdering starts, and she runs out holding her tits up, saying, "I'm sorry, I learned my lesson," as if the murder is detention. And just. The whole thing, I couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was transcendental.
Yeah, I mean, even the way she dies is hilarious because, like, the entire time she's hiding under the bleachers, I was like, oh, the character will, like, push the bleachers in and she will be crushed within the machinery or something interesting like that. And then, no, the killer just spots her and stabs her in the forehead, and that's it. Of course, with his the handy-dandy gavel knife.
Yeah. All the kills are like, I'm going to hit you with the gavel. Oh, that didn't really work. Here's my knife. And it's like, okay, you're actually a knife guy. I don't know why you're pretending.
Which, of course, is political commentary for the fact that the consistency of the bluntness of the hammer is nothing to the new idea of taping a knife to the end of a hammer.
You have to consider both sides, the sharp and the blunt. Yeah. Oh, fuck. Yeah. We could just go scene by scene. Obviously, there's something in every bit to laugh at. There's a part where a kid's hiding from a search party of cops, and it's framed like it's the most dramatic thriller ever, and it's so goofy. Like I thought you weren't able to breathe. It was
I laughed so hard. Because I thought the implication was, well, this kid's fucked. Because there's like 100 cops around him. And all he's doing is just like back up against a tree, being like, oh. But the implication is meant to be that he escaped. He actually got away from all of these cops. Like none of them were like, hey, let's look to the right a little bit.
Oh, man.
The dad at one point needs to go outside, goes into a kitchen to grab a weapon to defend himself, and he grabs like a wooden spatula.
Every time I think we're about to wrap this up, you remember something else completely unhinged. The spatula shit was so funny. It's that he gets home invaded like 3 times during that movie and never grabs a knife. That everyone here has the self-preservation instincts of a fucking lemur. It's hilarious.
Yeah, we should, I guess, actually spoil the end of this movie because there's no reason to watch it. You called the big twist of this movie immediately.
First scene, baby.
Where, what was it, Madison?
Melissa, I can't believe you disrespect her like this.
I'm having to use the Rotten Tomatoes to remember character names because the Wikipedia doesn't exist, and I had to leave the page. Melissa gets thrown over a bridge and killed, seemingly at the start of the movie, but in fact, she is not dead. She is, in fact, one of the killers in this. However, there are actually 4 killers in this movie. Her little brother is one, police guy is one, and then the last killer is, Mr. Jones or Mr. Davis or something like that, the teacher at the school that everybody loves. And this is where you get into this hilarious idea that Mr. Jackson, sorry, is his name. You get into this hilarious idea because Mr. Jackson's motivation for doing this is very unclear, beyond the idea that he will become the mayor. The line of secession basically says that once the mayor and the mayoral candidate are both dead, the mayorship will then pass to the eldest member of the town council, which is him. And he has other members of the town council basically on his side.
This takes so long to explain.
It's so hilarious because, like, you're trying to figure out why he's so motivated to become the mayor of this crappy fucking tiny town in New England. It's not like you're going to become rich off of it or anything like that. But again, throughout the entire movie, he's been kind of preaching the importance of being involved in politics to his students. He's like, you have to care about this. I forgot they even have a giant rebuttal back and forth between two characters at one point between consistency and new ideas where they're like...
They do a debate club exercise for like no reason, just two people in the class, apropos of nothing, no resolution, don't even get to finish the game.
No, but Mr. Jackson, of course, has been pushing this. He has something to say about politics, but again, because there are no definites to any of this, it's not even like you're like, oh, well, this movie has shitty political opinions. It has zero. It can't offer anything because it refuses to acknowledge either like any conflicts actually exist. It's just vague, sort of inconceptual designs, like new ideas and consistency. But Mr. Jackson doesn't believe either of those are the way forward. So he offers a third new bold plan, which is, what if I was mayor and I walked around in a cool suit and drank coffee? Period.
His master plan. I feel like there's an earlier script version where he was like, I have to eliminate the child tax credit at all costs, no matter how many people have to die. And they're like, what does that even mean? No one knows what you're talking about. So instead, yeah, his brilliant master plan just involves him being like, oh man, it feels good to be mayor.
Yeah, now I am the mayor. And who gives a shit, dog? Like, you're the mayor of a shitty small town. What has changed? Like, there's nothing to say what conflicts exist in this town. There's nothing to say like, oh, well, this town spends too much money. Our economy's bad. People are losing jobs. There's nothing about any of that. There's no like concept that anything is bad in this town. And the only thing they care about is tradition. So like him becoming mayor is just kind of this idea, and he's allowed to become mayor. Allison, the character we talked about, who is sort of our main character, we haven't talked about it at all because she doesn't really have anything interesting to do or say, is like given an opportunity where she knows that Mr. Jackson is involved in everything. All the other killers are dead and the police are here. And he kind of presents her with an opportunity. He's like, you could do this, but you know, if you implicate me, who knows what'll happen to this town, to everything. And it's meant to be like a harrowing decision she makes. Like she's haunted by it at the end of the movie, where even though she's taken an interest in school politics now, she's like, oh God, what evil have I been allowed to rule the world? And like you see then he's just chilling out in his New England town. He's drinking coffee. He's like, what up, kid? He's got his cool new suit on, and you're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. What is discernibly different for this town now that it's like out like 3 adults and like 16 kids?
Yeah, there's a fucking mountain of bodies, and like the deal with the devil is like, do you want to be elected to the school, government board or whatever? Like, it's not like she got the fucking hidden treasure. She didn't get a fucking treasure chest full of doubloons. Like, she's like haunted by the decision to like let a guy sign some paperwork. It's like the stakes are so fucking bizarre. I will say that
it's so funny.
I didn't guess this teacher from the first scene because he's, not in the first scene. I guessed the actual stabber because he's not doing stabbing. It's the woman who obviously didn't die when she got thrown off the bridge. I've seen horror movies. I need the brain or heart exploding on screen or they're not dead. I'm not stupid. No one dies from falling off a small bridge. I know you're still alive. You're the killer. I knew it the whole time.
Yeah, also was very smart. I eventually picked up on it because eventually it was also just like, well, there's not too many other things, but then eventually it does just become like, well, who else is involved in this stupid plot as like more people start getting tied into it? There's no like interesting kills either. Like we talked about how there's like a cop who eats candy, and we were like waiting for like, oh, they're gonna like suffocate her with gumballs and be like,
choke her with a Twizzler.
Yeah, too many sweets, huh, officer, or something like that. Now they stab her. They kill her the same way they kill everyone else. So why she has a candy-eating gimmick is up to your audience imagination, I guess. It's all wonderfully inept.
Yeah, I can't say enough about the great time we had. Every decision they made was wrong, from the lighting, probably to the catering on set. Just a auteur performance. Everyone involved really made the world a brighter place. Thank you so much for this gift of Founders Day. It's given me a lot to think about. This is an election year. It's going to be probably Biden versus Trump. And I really have to ask myself about, their positions and if there's maybe a third way that we could go. And who am I willing to kill to achieve that?
Austin's tired of consistency and new ideas. He's interested in finding out who he needs to murder to wear a cool suit and walk around with some coffee.
I want the most inconsistent old ideas possible. Holy shit.
Austin's for leeches is what he's saying.
Oh boy.
Oh my god. What a terrible movie. But truly a great experience. This like there's like bad movies. Like we talk a lot about bad movies on this podcast and stuff like that. And then there's like so bad it's good, which oftentimes I feel like tends to go towards stuff that's like intentionally bad. Your Sharktopuses, your Sharknadoes, your Velocipastors, stuff like that. Stuff that you never looked at, or that you looked at and knew from the moment you saw it. You're like, well, this is never intending to be like good art. This is kind of stupid for stupid's sake. And that's fine. That's like a totally valid way to do things. There's something about a movie like this, though, that on the surface, you could look at it and be like, well, this is like a totally reasonable movie. Like, surely it's fine. And then you watch it like, oh, this is just a complete mess. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to enjoy another movie in the same way that I will this movie's absolute refusal to like identify anybody based off of real concepts or political like identities whatsoever. The like new ideas versus consistency debate like rages on in my brain. Like I'm like, it's a high I'm gonna chase for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I mean, it's honestly not even that much of the movie. So much I thought really it was going to be either all kills or all like politics. Honestly, so much of it is about who's smooching who. There's like 6 love triangles, and it doesn't matter. Every named character except for 2 die, so who gives a shit? But there's so much spent on like these bad boyfriends being like, oh, you talk to another man, you whore. It's like, whoa, what the fuck is happening? This guy is like having a psychotic break in the middle of this fucking high school, and no one's noticing? Why? Oh my god, someone fucking stages a fake stabbing in the hallway.
That's right. I forgot, yeah.
How is the resource officer not unloading an entire mag into this man? You cannot run through the halls with a knife. It's banana. It takes place in a fucking bizarro world. This is a live action South Park episode for some reason. I don't fucking know.
That is truly like the great way. Like this is very much like a serious way of saying like, oh no, our only candidates are a turret sandwich and a douche. Like our only candidates are new ideas and consistency, and it's so silly. I think what I was trying to really say is like, there are bad movies and there are like movies that are so bad it's good, but this is absolutely like just a good bad movie. Like I wish I could give this like a 12-star on Letterboxd. Like I had such a great time at this movie, probably a better time than I have at most 4 stars, but I fully recognize this is a bad movie.